Jay.
Not even that aggressive. That's more of just a dawdle.
Jay.
Unless it's free popcorn day, then I'm like,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's Usain Bolt in Beijing.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantasy Football Pregame with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
I do a lot of TV. I've done a lot of TV. I don't know if I've ever told you guys, this is the most fun I have.
I love you, Marcus Smith.
Every Sunday morning, Fantasy Football Pregame is the most fun I have.
This whole year at NBC, in fact, the whole 2 years I've been here, we laugh every day. We laugh and laugh and laugh, and it's a lot of fun.
And you see this thing, this is a rundown, this is a script, and this thing means nothing on this
Nothing
show.
to us.
With all due respect to producer Steven.
Yeah.
It's like, we never know where this is going.
No,
it's like
we'll
off
figure
the
it out.
rails is our default. Welcome to week 18.
But also, by the way, Michael,
yes.
part of what makes it fun is that the audience is bought in as well.
100%.
We've developed an audience. We're thrilled. You guys show up every single week. You ask great questions. You interact in the chat. Our YouTube chat's on fire. Like it's been great, and I'm so appreciative of everyone.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
so appreciative of the support at NBC. Appreciative of all you guys, everyone behind the scenes, even the little people, Jay.
Yes.
I like them.
The little people, Jay.
No, not Jay's not a little person.
I graduated.
He graduated. He's
Medium person.
medium person. Yeah, mid.
But keep those. Keep those questions, comments, observations coming to the hashtag FF Pregame. Of course, chime in on the YouTube chat. These guys need no introduction, obviously. Lawrence Jackson, Jay Crouch here, Michael Smith, and of course, Matthew Berry. It's been a fun season. Hopefully you enjoyed the season no matter the result. For those of you that are crowned a champion or were crowned champion, congratulations. Some of you may still be playing for a championship, so it's not all over.
Yeah, and you know what, Michael? I mean, today it's week 18, so it's already a loose week. If you're playing for a championship, we've got you. I know a lot of leagues do go to week 18. We're going to answer all your questions. Use FF Pregame or just get into the chat on YouTube. But more importantly, like if you have keeper questions, hey, if you've had a great loser punishment, we want to see it. Hey, you have a kick-ass trophy, let us see it. Let us, brag to us. So it's week 18. All bets are off. Whatever you want to know, we're here for you.
And we're also going to do a big season recap segment toward the end of the show. We're going to put a bow on the year and look ahead to 2024. But let's focus on week 18 because, again, there's still a lot on the line, both in reality and in fantasy. Shout out to Jonathan. It's nothing. Listen, drinking alone, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And making it even better is that you're drinking in our chat at 7:30.
Yes.
So Jonathan
I'm about to say that the 7:30 is the best part about it.
It's happy hour
7:30.
somewhere.
And also, Jonathan, you're not alone. You're in the chat.
You're with us.
You're with us.
And Jonathan has anything that Jonathan asks, like you skip the queue, like you skip the line.
Yes.
Like we got the plug on to get your questions in. You got priority access to any questions you may have.
Yeah, that guy's a
on
legend.
Week 18. Absolutely.
That guy's a legend.
All right,
Cheers to you. You do drink free.
So I think we got all the housekeeping covered there. So let's start with, Matthew, your top storyline for this crazy Week 18.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big storyline is just who's playing, who's not. Like, we know Travis Kelce. We expect him to get in there to try to get the record, to try to get 1,000 yards. But, how much does he play beyond that? How much does Puka Nacua play beyond getting the rookie record here? We think the Lions are playing to win. Does that mean Jahmyr Gibbs is going? I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a big game today. But, what about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff? So, I mean, I think that's the big storyline. Who's playing, who's not. We're going to try to, throughout the show, try to break down who we think's playing the whole game, who we don't think is, And week 18 is, or the last week of the season, because it used to be week 17, is always like, there's always the, the Joe McKnights of the world.
Right.
Those,
McKnight, good
right?
pull.
Remember Joe McKnight had that one game for the Jets, week 17. There's some of those guys.
Kenyon Drake is a champion of week 17.
But Kenyon Drake actually had some value at various weeks throughout his career. I'm just saying, guys that came out of nowhere that had just one-hit wonders in the last week because they got to
that end, and we'll talk later in the show about changes we'd like to see in our fantasy leagues. But I've always been curious. Why do people play Week 18 championships, like 2 weeks? No, thank you. I don't want any part of Week 18.
It's funny you mentioned Week 18. My brother was telling me about his league. He's in here right now watching us on this show. He had Michael Pittman last night in Week 18, and if you notice the last play for the Colts on that kickoff return, Michael Pittman got it. Threw it back, fumbled. Now he's minus 2 points. But I tell my brother, he mad as hell. Like, that's what you get for playing in Week 18.
I'll tell you why people play in Week 18. A couple of reasons why. Number one, no, this is ESPN. The default, if you play your league on ESPN, the default, and you don't change anything, is two things. It's a 2-week final, and it goes to week 18, and it's for a couple reasons. Number one is, and I like the 2-week final. I like the 2-week playoffs because, again, to your point, like what happens is 1 week anything can happen, but you know there are a lot of leagues where I'm in where the best team in the league did not win the title.
Sure.
You know, because it's just, whatever, you run into
stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens in the playoffs, like you know.
Stuff really happens in week 18.
Yeah, 1,000%. But just the 2-week playoff. So sometimes it's just you have, in terms of backing it out, making sure you have enough weeks for the team to play. The other thing is, honestly, it's a business decision by ESPN, which I sort of get. It's because I remember when I was there internally, I would be like, why do we play week 18? Why is that our default? Can we change it? And they were like, because we get more traffic in week 18 than like any season of our any season of our fantasy baseball. There are enough people that just sign up for the default that will come. That week 18 they will still come. They will check their lineups. They will make waiver moves and like they just like it's a business decision by them. And like like if you don't like it, change your league settings.
Sure. Well, speaking of business, like from a betting standpoint, how does week 18 affect the betting industry?
I mean, it's a complete nightmare because in terms of how do you price these markets, like how do you price Jared Goff's passing yards today? Like, do you know, like we think he's definitely going to play the first half, probably, but is he going to play the second half? What happens if they get down a lot? What happens if they get up a lot? Like, it's really just calculated guesswork. Like, where would you set? So Puka Nacua needs 29 yards to set the receiving record. Where would you set his receiving prop? 36 and a half? Because he's probably not going to just get to 29 and just fall over. He'll probably carry. So it's just impossible, but it creates opportunities for people to be able to take advantage of.
Fascinating. All right, Jay.
By people to take advantage of, you mean people like us?
Yes.
Like, are you
like
going
us.
to have people to watching? Are we going to get some good bets today?
Keep the ball
By
rolling.
the way, Mason Rudolph under on the passing yards.
Yes.
Your best bet from Friday. That cashed.
Yes. A little scary on the 70-yarder to Deontay Johnson, but he cashed nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of money on that. I tailed you on that. I was happy about
without that.
And
you win easy.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
Nico Collins over in the receptions. That cashed as well. So we had a good day.
Pretty
We had
early.
a good day.
Indeed.
Keep it going, Jay.
My storyline today, Michael, I think at the 1 p.m. slate, the big story is Baker Mayfield. Because it's gone a little bit under the radar because I don't think a ton of people have paid attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the NFC South in general. But Baker Mayfield quietly is having the best season of his career. He was the #1 overall pick. He led Cleveland to the playoffs. 4 teams in 12 months he was on. Now he's having the best year of his career. He's going to get to 4,000 yards, might get to 30 passing touchdowns. And I think everyone expects that he's just going to beat Carolina today and clinch the division. They're only 4-point favorites. Like, this is a huge legacy game for Baker Mayfield and his future in the league. I think if he blows this game, all of the good vibes, I mean, I think he'll still probably come back, but the vibes disappear. If he wins this and goes into Carolina and there is no love lost between those two parties, it's a big moment for Baker.
Especially because, by the way, I think the perception, just general's perception, Carolina, they suck, they're bad. And I don't think people realize, no, seriously, that's the perception.
I'm laughing at what you're about to say.
Right.
Like, these are professionals, all right? They're playing for jobs.
Not only they're playing for jobs, but like they have a good defense. They've actually played really good defense over like the last month especially as well. And so, I mean, listen, C.J. Stroud, who's as hot a quarterback as there in the NFL, like the one speed bump other than the games that he missed due to injury was at Carolina. Like, again, like the Panthers have a really good secondary. The game's in Carolina. That's a tough place to play. On the grass, it's a division game. So I'm just like, to your point, I agree with you. That'll be the narrative. And he won't get any benefit of like, well, that was a tough matchup on the road to Carolina. Yeah, exactly. It'd be like you lost to a crappy team that you should have beaten. But I think the line is right, a 4.5-point favorite. Like, it's a close one.
Yeah, it's gonna be tight.
Are you like trying to secretly tell us that we gonna have to watch the Falcons in the playoffs? Is that what you trying to say?
Well, that's the most terrifying thing about it. Not only that, but if the Falcons get in the playoffs, they would play the Eagles in round 1. I don't think the Eagles are unbeatable. Can you imagine Falcons 1 win away from the NFC title game? Like, that's not out of the cards.
And I think here's the most concerning thing. I believe, I apologize if this is not the correct, but I believe it was Tom Pelissero of NFL Network who was tweeting out just various scenarios around coaching and just basically said, if Arthur Smith, assuming if he wins today, regardless of what happens with the Buccaneers, but if the Falcons beat the Saints today, he should be safe. So we're all Saints fans today. Who dat?
Hey, man,
who dat?
Telling?
Sorry, who day is Cincinnati? Who dat? Let's go Saints. Who dat?
Let's go Derek Carr.
Come on.
Say it again.
Come on, Rashid Shaheed.
Say it again.
Who dat?
Because he's from New Orleans. He want to hear that again.
No, that's the worst who dat ever. It just sounds so.
Wait.
One more time,
Wait,
though.
hang on. I can do it worse. Who dat?
Terrifying.
See?
Who that?
Who's dat?
It's like he's saying, like,
Who's
from the
that?
Little Rascals when they
right.
say "Ote,"
Right.
like "Ote."
Yeah, exactly. I have a query. Dat. Who would that be? How about that? Is that a better version of it?
That's grim.
It got better.
It's like a baby
You
Who
got
Dat.
it. You got it. You're honorary member of Who Dat
There you go.
Nation.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's
Listen,
awesome.
I'm rooting for the Saints. Whatever. You can
we
take
made
me on
that
the
clear.
bandwagon or not, but I
made
want
that
the
clear.
Saints to win.
So just to be clear, Arthur Smith's entire coaching future and legacy
One
depends
game.
on today.
Yeah.
It's
One
not
game.
like,
Just-
So if
just-
Young Wei Koo misses a kick,
Yeah.
Smith's gone. Like, it's so
he
ridiculous.
wasn't a good coach if they lose by a point.
All jokes aside, never ever want to cheer on somebody to get fired.
Bingo.
There are families
Thank you.
involved.
Yes, thank
It's not just Arthur Smith's family,
Right.
but it would be assistant coaches, their
Right.
wives, their kids having to move.
a
Like
very
it
harsh
sucks.
reality.
It's a very
Yes.
harsh reality, and it sucks. And so I don't want it to seem like I am actively rooting for Arthur
Never,
Smith's
never.
firing.
Having said that,
I don't know. He might be rooting for your job to be lost because you know he don't like fantasy people.
He does not like fantasy people.
Like he definitely know who you are.
Maybe, but I just whatever. All I would say is that I believe that objectively, Arthur Smith has underperformed with the Falcons. I do not think he has done a good job coaching this team. I think he's had some bright spots, honestly, taking fantasy out of it. Like I think he doesn't have a quarterback, and I think he's had them. They've got a shot at the playoffs still. But I think just the usage of his star players is mind-boggling to me because I have to assume he has a say in the draft process.
Yes.
No head coach in the NFL doesn't have a say in the draft day process. And so the fact that they've used 3 top 8 NFL picks on offensive skill players that they don't seem to use is mind-boggling to me. And I think the Falcons, candidly, have probably underperformed. I think the success of their team is mostly their defense.
Yes.
And which I don't know that Smith gets a lot of credit for because he's an offensive coach. And anyway, so we'll see. Bottom line is I'm rooting for the Saints today.
Let's say on Smith. Like,
And who dat?
they drafted Bijan Robinson and their run game got way worse. Like that's the most insane thing. They had a really good running game last year. They were hugely efficient.
Hopefully he could get to. Hopefully he could get to that 1,000 yards. He's 52 yards short of 1,000. So Arthur Smith, let your boy
think about
get
that.
that.
Think about that. That Bijan Robinson is potentially going to finish with less rushing yards as a rookie than Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
honestly, and you
yeah.
know what that is? To me, and you watch the Falcons a lot closer than I do, Lawrence, so you tell me if you disagree with it. But honestly, that is to me, that is a coach saying, this is the scheme and we're running it, as opposed to saying, Bijan Robinson is this completely different animal that has such an incredible skill set that Tyler Algier just doesn't have.
Yeah.
He's just got
Right.
gears that Tyler Algier doesn't have, and he's just like, so he's not maximizing what makes Bijan Robinson so special. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like in terms of getting him in space, in terms of the versatility of him in the passing
you
attack.
could not have told me in the preseason that the Lions would utilize Jahmyr Gibbs better than the Falcons did.
Oh, I
Bijan
would have
Robinson.
bought that. Just offensive coordinator alone.
Sure, but in terms of build, like Bijan Robinson's a prototypical 3-down back. Like whereas Jahmyr Gibbs, you might have thought, oh, maybe he'll be that quote-unquote change of pace guy. He's been more of a workhorse at times than Bijan Robinson has.
Bijan Robinson to me was the best college running back. I mean, and Connor said something, but I think probably since Saquon.
It's
the
Saquon,
best-
Adrian Peterson, and Bijan.
I thought this would have been a Chester Taylor, Adrian Peterson situation where the coach had a veteran, second-year guy that he liked, but then realized, no, we're giving the ball to this once-in-a-generation guy. But Lawrence, been waiting patiently over there. Let's see your storyline, brother.
Jay, you said these Eagles are beatable. They definitely are. My storyline is, can the Giants actually upset them? We saw the Eagles lose to the the Arizona Cardinals last week, who they're just playing for pride. Then you, on the other hand, you saw the Giants, who was a 2-point conversion away from beating the Rams, who is playing some of the best football in the league right now. So you combine those two together. When the Eagles, Matthew's storyline was who's going to play Week 18. Well, the Eagles are playing because they have to. In recent years, they didn't have to. Now they're in a position where they have to win, and they need help from a Dallas Cowboys loss to the Commanders, which probably is not happening, but they have to play.
No Devontae Smith.
No Devontae Smith, so that they should be able to beat the Giants without Devontae Smith, but it certainly does not help them.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, when you lose to the Cardinals a week 1 week ago, you look and you like overthink losing a player like Devontae Smith because of that. So that'll be my storyline today if they could overcome and actually beat the Giants.
A couple of weeks ago, that game wasn't easy either. When the Eagles beat the Giants, they had a tough time with them.
By the way, and like just again, if you're like sort of desperate for a streamer today, look at Tyrod Taylor, who's going to get you some rushing. And like,
yes, sir.
No team in the NFL gives up more fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks than the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defense is brutal. That's why I don't think they go far in the playoffs. And I think if you say, give me a team that's currently in the playoffs that's most likely to lose in the first round, I would give you the Eagles. I think they're the most opportune to be upset because their defense has been so bad all year, Jay.
Something is wrong there with the Eagles, and just dropping to the 5 seed, that makes it so much more difficult because now you're probably looking at San Francisco on the road in week 2 if you're able to beat probably the Bucs in week 1, and it feels like they're drawing dead in that game. Though you can't write them off completely. Also, Tyrod Taylor, I think that's the perception because of Tyrod from his Buffalo days is more like a dink and dunk guy. No, Tyrod chucks it down the field, and we saw that the last time they played the Eagles, that bomb touchdown to Darius Slayton.
Yep. Hey, guys. Last time for 2023. There it is.
Oh, there it is.
No.
Burning questions.
And I'm still mad on the picture.
You're still mad, but you're like, you're moving. Like
I'm
you're like,
moving.
something's
I'm
moving there.
Doing
like,
a little.
like,
I'm doing a little shimmy with the shoulders
I
right
think
there.
yours is the best one because it's the facial expression of like.
It is angry.
It actually looked like I'm in a cowboy movie, ready to draw my weapons. So
No, it looks like,
Young
why the
Guns.
hell am I in chaps?
Unforgiven. 310 to humor or something.
You know,
very out of
on
play
some
there.
cookout.
So the AFC East showdown that we were all looking forward to and hoping for, Buffalo, Miami, for all the marbles in that division. Achane, Devon Achane, Matthew. Let's hone in on him with Raheem Mostert,
Yes.
likely out. What are your expectations for Achane?
I think he has a huge game. Look, in games this year in which Devon Achane's had at least 10 touches, not a lot, but just 10 touches, he's averaging 127 yards and over 24 fantasy points per game. Last time he played Buffalo, he scored 2 touchdowns. He had 120 total yards. He's had a double-digit target share in 4 of the past 5 games, and I think that's the important thing as well, is that with Jalen Waddle out, they don't like go to, let's suddenly pepper Durham Smythe and Braxton Berrios and Cedric Wilson with a bunch of targets. No, it's a lot of Tyreek Hill and it's Devon Achane out of the backfield. You'll see a little bit of Cedric Wilson tonight. You'll see some Berrios and Smythe and all those guys. But honestly, Devon Achane I think will be a big part of the passing attack because they're going to need to put up points. I think to keep up with Buffalo. I mean, Miami is so beat up defensively. We don't expect Colin to play. Xavier Howard is out. Bradley Chubb is out. As we know, Phillips is out. I think the Bills' offense gets on track in a big way here. So I think there's a chance at a track meet tonight. Great game, Sunday Night Football, Peacock, NBC. I'm a company man, but I think Devon Achane at home, where the Dolphins have played a lot better this year, should be a big play. He's my running back 6 for the week.
No, I'm with you there. Achane, I think the key point that you mentioned is with Waddle out. We always think about who's the Waddle replacement. Like, is it Cedric Wilson? No, it's kind of Devon Achane. I think so much of his receiving work, it's just imagine how different his stats look if he catches that 80-yard touchdown bomb against the Titans on Monday Night Football, which was just out of his grasp. And that he is being used in that manner. So I think Achane, he's RB6 for Matthew. I think that's totally justified.
Conversely, what the hell is wrong with Stephon Diggs, man? Like this time last week we were talking about, he's got to break through. This was me. He's got to break through at some time. He's got to, is it hopeless at this point?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything wrong with him. It's just like past 2 games, he's had 7 targets, and then his game before that, he had 8 targets. Both games under 30 yards receiving. So it's a weird disconnect. It's like the Bills have been playing different type of football. It's not been the Josh Allen run around and make a play type of football. Mm-hmm. They're relying on all parts of the game. Against the Patriots, it was the defense that won in the game. Versus Dallas, it was the run game. But this is probably good for the Buffalo Bills that they can win. They're
playing for real football, complimentary football.
So it sucked from a fantasy standpoint, but it's like the Bills have been winning important games down the stretch that they need to win. So you got to take it because they're winning.
No, that makes
if
sense.
they were losing the games, you might see Trayvon Diggs on Twitter, but the Bills are winning, so you can't really say nothing. But for Diggs himself, it seems like a small disconnect, but because they're winning, I don't think they really give a damn.
The Joe Brady offense has been more balanced, much more run heavy, spreading the ball around. This stat is crazy to me. Since Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator in Week 12, the Bills have turned it around as a team, as an NFL team, and they've won a lot, and they've gotten themselves back into the playoff race. They win tonight. They're the AFC East champions, which is sort of they're the 2 seed, which is sort of crazy to think about when you think about where this team was, a month and a half ago. But since Week 12, when Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator of the Bills, from that point forward, Stephon Diggs is wide receiver 60 in fantasy football on a points per game basis. He's averaging 7.6 fantasy points per game. He's had under 50 receiving yards in 6 to 7 games. And the weird part is, Lawrence, to your point, is like he is getting looks. Yeah, and I don't know if it's because of
about last week. Snap, raw participation, all the stuff is there.
It's like we talked. I heard you bring this up too, Jay, in the past couple of shows. Like against the Chargers, Josh Allen had him deep. He underthrew that one. Like perhaps we would be talking different if that one play goes for 70 yards on that touchdown. But it's like it's those type of misses that make you feel like it's some sort of disconnect with how different they're playing the game right now.
And listen, I'll just I'm at wide receiver 10, and I feel very nervous about that ranking. I'm at wide receiver 10 because we know he's going to play.
So I gotta respect.
Well, it's partially he is getting the looks. Yeah. I do think Josh Allen has a monster game tonight, and it is. We know Stephon Diggs is going to play the entire game, right? And he, against Miami in Week 4, 6 for 120 and 3 touchdowns. Just had a monster game against the Dolphins. Having said that, we just don't know. Okay, with Xavier Howard out, did they stick Jalen Ramsey on Stephon Diggs and say we'll take our chances with everyone else? Or so he's definitely again. I'm at 10. I do think he bounces back tonight, but if you're playing in a Week 18 final, you got here despite and or without Stephon Diggs, not because of, and so you probably have better options potentially.
This is a crazy game. I mean, Buffalo right now the 3rd favorite to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings. If the Jags beat the Titans, which they're 4-point favorites to do, and then Buffalo lose tonight in a game that is, they're favored, but they're only 2.5 to 3-point favorites. Then they're
Miami plays well at home.
Yeah, season's over for Buffalo.
That is a wild range of outcomes for them. Like that's 2 seed to just being at home,
watching at home.
No middle ground. All the more reason for you to tune in to Sunday Night Football featuring Matthew Berry. Moving on to Vikings, Lions. Simply put, the rankings are right there. You got a top 10 QB, a top 10 running back, and certainly a top 5 wide receiver and tight end, and Sun God and Laporta. But bottom line, do you trust the Lions to play these guys much tonight?
I do.
Against the Vikings?
I do. I think the line opened at 3.5, and it's now 4. Like Lions -4. Jay, I think where they opened -3, something. It's up to 4. I think the betting market agrees with sort of what we were talking about, and I know, Jay, this is a bet you gave out earlier in the week that you like a lot, which is Dan Campbell, especially at 2 things. Dan Campbell is like, with every cliche, he's a football guy. You play to win the game and all that, right? Bites kneecaps.
One ass chicken, 3 toes.
100%. Every cliche you want to do. Yeah. Also, the Lions, it's not like the Chiefs where Andy Reid could be like, I've been there, done that. Yeah. Lions haven't been in the playoffs in forever. They just lost this heartbreaker against Dallas. I think he wants to make a statement. I think, they want to get as many wins as they can. I think they want to come out here. I think they'll be smart. I think if they're up big or whatever, but I think yes. I think they will. I'll tell you this. I bet the over on Jahmyr Gibbs rushing prop, which was like 56.5. I like that against the Vikings. Like I think Gibbs has a big game. I think Rob St. Brown has a big game. He's my wide receiver 4. I have Gibbs as a top 10 play this week. I think the Lions played this game straight up and they play to win.
Well, while this game is in the balance, I think Dan Campbell's going to treat this like a playoff game. Honestly, after everything that happened against Dallas, the way that game ended, the way in the press conference during the week he talked about his controlled fury and pure octane. This guy, the market is projecting that he's going to do what normal coaches do in this situation, and it's effectively a meaningless game for them. Normal coaches don't go for a 4th and 7 for a 2-point conversion. Like, he is a madman in a good way. And I think that he is going to go all out to win this game, to restore the vibe, to build momentum going into the playoffs.
Going for the 2 from the 7 is why I know that they're going to play their hearts out in this game.
I love that point. They don't have anything they can take for granted. They don't have that kind of culture to just say, oh,
No.
been there, done that.
100% no. Pure Octane, by the way, is a pretty good fantasy football team
Yes.
name next year.
Yes.
And Controlled Chaos?
Control Fury.
Controlled
Yes.
Fury.
There you
Either
go,
one.
there you
Yeah.
go. Dennis says that he won his league with the help of FF Pregame. Thanks for the content.
Let's go.
Keeper question. Can only keep 3, 1 from any position. Herbert, Eckler, Gibbs, Adams, Olave, or Laporta.
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm throwing back Herbert.
Yeah.
I'm throwing back Herbert. I think that I would probably keep Gibbs over Eckler. We just don't know what, which is crazy given this, but
No, I think that's obvious.
I mean,
I'm
nervous about Eckler.
Yeah, I think
I think Laporta would be my first pick.
And then that's what I was going to say. That's why I'm throwing away the quarterback.
Yeah.
So he can keep 3, and he has to keep 1 from each position. So I'd say keep 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, and
Yep.
and then Laporta. I think Laporta at tight end is much more valuable than Herbert at quarterback. You'll get a
100%.
quarterback.
Which
Yeah.
receiver? You think Olave or?
I think Olave, unless. And this is one thing I'll say. We'll give you our thoughts on keepers. But one thing I just want to say about keepers, my general attitude is I turn in my keepers at the last possible second. Because news changes all the time, fantasy value changes all the time. If we sat here today, I'd rather Olave than Devontae Adams back with the Raiders and Aiden O'Connell. But there are a lot of rumors that in the offseason, Devontae Adams will get traded to the Jets to be reunited with Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
And that becomes really interesting, right?
Right.
And so
Buy yourself some
I
time.
think,
But why were you so quick? Like just off the bat, he was like, I'm throwing back Herbert.
Quarterback.
Because it's a math question, right? So it's like, I want to keep one of the running backs.
Yeah.
I want to keep one of the wide receivers. It really becomes, do I keep the tight end or the quarterback? I think I have a better shot at getting an elite quarterback,
Yep.
than I do a tight end. So it's really, because if you keep Herbert, then you either have to throw back a running back.
Personally, I would have thrown back Adams or Olave. I'll defer to you on this one, but I would have thrown
Really?
back. Yeah, I would have kept the
I think
quarterback.
both guys are top 10 wide receivers.
I'd have kept Gibbs.
Is this a Herbert
Laporta.
falling off that far question, or just
It's
more
just
of
the quarterback.
position?
It's
Okay.
you like Matthew said, you could get the quarterback, and even if let's say what you say comes true with Adams to the Jets, that's a 2-man show with him with Garrett Wilson and Adams. So I still might go Olave there because they had similar numbers this year, but 100% on Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs.
For sure.
I think
Oh,
them
for
two
sure.
is the
For sure.
that's the
Yeah,
them the
those
two.
are
I think
losses right there.
and depending on assuming you can keep, I probably would go with Olave just because he's younger, and then you can just keep him for more years.
Yeah.
But oh, look at
Hey,
this.
Guillotine League final.
Let's
Opponent
go.
had Nico Collins and Jonathan Taylor. Oof. Right. Michael Pittman.
Woof.
-2.
Yeah. Should this individual consider Dak over Josh Allen and Metcalf over Amon-Ra St. Brown for more potential big scores to catch up, Matthew?
Yes, but I actually would still stick with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
My fear is I get it because Dak's playing my Commanders, and my Commanders are awful. But I also think there's a chance he sits in the second half. I think there could be a defensive score. Remember, the Commanders are playing behind not only a patchwork offensive line, but a lot of their starters aren't playing. I mean, listen, Cam Curl's not going to play in this game. Like their whole secondary, it's awful. I think both guys have huge games, Dak and Josh Allen. I'm just worried. Josh Allen needs this game, and I think this is a legacy game for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Right? This is a game where Josh Allen has to, again, he could be the 2 seed, he could be out of the playoffs. This is a Josh Allen, put your cape on and go win and go be Superman and get us into the playoffs and get us the number 2 seed. Dak doesn't, like, the Cowboys want to win, obviously, but there's so many weapons that they have there. I guess my point is that you need who's got the best chance at having a crazy game. And I actually still think it's Josh Allen.
That's
Josh Allen's the new Jalen Hurts. He'll get 2 1-yard touchdowns.
It's Josh Allen. And when we talk about the ranks later, I'll talk more about Josh Allen and how he does against the Dolphins. But because of the opponent, the matchup, Bills, Dolphins, 48 over under that that's actually went down a little bit. So yeah, that just the potential back and forth.
Yeah, and just to wrap this finally up, is just but DK Metcalf against the Cardinals, he's got a 2 or 3 touchdown game potential that Amon-Ra does not against the Vikings.
Do that one.
I would do DK, yes. I would, because he's got touchdown potential that St. Brown doesn't. There's also a chance that, again, if the Lions get it big, that they pull him. But Seattle needs to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Watch Josh Allen on Sunday Night Football, man. But let's stay with that game. I mean, high key at this point. Let's go to you here, Jay. Seahawks, Cardinals. Could this be a shootout? One of the highest scoring games of the weekend.
Absolutely, it could be. The total is 47.5, one of the higher totals on the board. And we saw what this Cardinals offense could do. The Cardinals were down 21-6 at halftime against the Eagles and ended up putting up 35 on them. Also, the Seahawks just gave up 27 to Mason Rudolph. I don't think this is a great Seattle defense. It was really solid at midseason, and it's really fallen off. They've had some injuries. And this Cardinals defense obviously is not very good. So I think this could absolutely be a shootout, and that's why you want to bank on guys like DK Metcalf. If you need variance and upside, you want shares of this game.
This game has the second highest over-under besides that Bills. And I actually think this Seattle Seahawks game versus the Cardinals will go higher than that Bills-Dolphins game. So, yes, it does have the potential to be the highest scoring game.
This is a game to turn to for fantasy decisions. We already just talked about Metcalf, but I have Kyler and Geno Smith both as top 6 plays against this. Like, Kyler, since returning, he's averaging over 18 points per game. Seattle's allowed the second most rushing yards to quarterback this season, so you think Kyler gets some points on the ground, by the way. No team in the NFL allows touchdown passes at a higher rate than the Cardinals, so Geno should go off as well. I think Ken Walker and James Conner as well have big games, really good matchups for them. It's 2 good offenses against 2 bad defenses, so to your point about that, I mean, again, I have Ken Walker at running back 4, I have James Conner at running back 2. I mean, and Walker got all the work last week.
For full PPR, Riaz wants to know Gibbs, DK, or Zamir White. Start 2.
Full PPR. I guess you know what? I mean, it's interesting because here's what I would say. Definitely starting DK Metcalf. I just talked about that, right? So it's Gibbs versus Zamir White. I think Gibbs has the highest upside. Depends on what you need, Riaz. If you need upside, Gibbs is the play. I will say that I think Zamir White gets 20 touches today, right? I have Gibbs slightly higher, so I think I'm like I just mentioned that. Like I put a lot of money down on Gibbs over on his rushing attempts. But there is a possibility that if they get it big or they get down big, that they pull Gibbs. Zamir White isn't coming out. He's getting 20 touches today, right? But if I needed upside, Gibbs has the better chance at a bigger game. So depends on what happened yesterday to you. If you just need solid production, go with DK and Zamir White. If you need some upside, Gibbs and DK.
Okay.
You guys want to break the tie?
I agree with you on DK. I think with Zamir White, when we talk about upside, I agree that Gibbs is the more explosive player, and he's the one who is on a single play more likely to take it 70 yards to the house. But Zamir White, when you just get 20 touches, you get 20 chances to break a long run. So I just wonder with Zamir White, it's not a matchup that's really scary either for Zamir White, so I might lean that way just because of the variance around Gibbs. He might not play in the fourth quarter.
Just real quick, Denver Broncos are one of the bottom 5 teams at allowing fantasy points to running backs, and that plus the guaranteed workload. So there you go.
By the way, breaking news, and we're going to get into all the inactives here in a minute here. You got plenty of time. Taylor Heineke inactive.
Oh, boy.
Desmond Ridder for your Falcons.
Desmond Riddle for all the marbles.
For all the marbles.
Arthur Smith.
As it should
Job
be.
on the line.
It feels fitting. Feels
Desmond Ridder, what could go wrong?
I want to know what them two talking about to each other in these, could be final hours or, maybe not,
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Trevor Lawrence is playing with Christian Kirk out.
All right.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield's playing.
More on inactives in a moment, or inactives in a moment. But last burning question we want to answer is whether Jordan Love gets it done against a Bears defense that has been eating lately, Matthew.
You know what? I'd be more nervous if the game's at Chicago, but since Thanksgiving, he's the 4th best quarterback in fantasy on a points per game basis. He's one of only 3 quarterbacks this year with 5 different games of 3 or more touchdown passes. Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, the other 2. I mean, being on a list with those guys. Think about this. Jordan Love is one of 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, one of only 3 quarterbacks in the NFL to have 5 different games of 3 or more touchdown passes. Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy,
That's awesome.
Jordan Love. For as much as we
win me a week. I don't care about your season. I love that. Win me a week.
I have to tell you something.
Big.
Jordan Love, at the beginning of the year, was more he's better at fantasy than real life football.
Yeah.
But as the course of the season has gone on, I think he's developed into a really good NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And we all want to talk about the excitement of Anthony Richardson. Obviously, C.J. Stroud put on a show.
Yeah.
He's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. But Jordan Love in his first year starting with guys, young receivers that were in and out of the lineup, with injuries. He didn't have Christian Watson until the end of the year, and then Jordan Love. No one's talking about Jordan Love, and he's had a really nice year.
He's a Pro Bowl type of quarterback. You mentioned the two quarterbacks, Dak and Brock Purdy. They're in the Pro Bowl. Stafford's the other one. He deserves that. But Jordan Love, 30 touchdowns, 11 picks, over 3,800 passing yards.
Sneaky rushing upside.
This is like his first year starting was he was better than Aaron Rodgers. He has them about to go to the playoffs, which Aaron Rodgers wasn't able to do.
Christian Watson in and out of the lineup. Romeo Doubs banged up. He was working with Jay Reed and Dontavian Wicks, and we like those guys.
And Reed was out that second half versus the Vikings.
Aaron Jones missed a chunk of time, and they couldn't run the ball.
Future's mighty bright for Jordan Love. Keeper question. Get to keep 3 offensive players: Joe Burrow or Jordan Love, Nick Chubb or Jahmyr Gibbs, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, or Tank Dell. Thank you for loving the show, Tim. We love you back.
Yeah. So it's still Joe Burrow. I mean, come on.
Right. That's a first world problem right there.
Yeah, it is a first world problem, but it's still Joe Burrow as well. I think it's probably Nick Chubb, but that's one that I want to wait till he comes back healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. I would take Gibbs there. Just worry about, just the younger guy, more upside in Gibbs. So just worry about what is Nick Chubb going to look like when he comes back.
Yeah.
And then Olave for me on the wide receivers again. Just
a lot of people got Olave and Devontae Adams on their teams.
Yeah.
By the way, Devontae Smith is going to finish as wide receiver. Devontae Smith is not you're kind of like, but he's going to finish the year as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver.
And it doesn't feel like he's had that type of season at all, right?
No, but he's been great. Tim, what I would try to do is I'd try to trade some of those guys.
I love me some Tank Dell.
If you can keep, honestly,
I know you love you some Tank Dell too.
I might keep the 2 receivers. I mean, keep Olave and Smith. I don't know. Throw back the running backs. You can keep any 3 offensive players. Honestly, what I would do is I would throw back the quarterbacks. Again, if you have Burrow or Love, unless it's
because he's not saying he has to keep a quarterback.
3 offensive players.
Just 3 offensive players.
Yeah.
Again, if it seems like it's probably like a 10 or 12 team league with 1 quarterback, you're able to get Burrow and Love. Because you're saying or makes me think it's a 1 quarterback league.
Yes.
I'd throw back I might keep both running backs and one of the wide receivers, or Olave and Smith and Gibbs.
he
that's
got
what I would
something
do.
to toy right there.
Okay. Hey,
depends on Chubb's health when he comes back.
Hey, one other storyline I just want to get to, one other burning question on this Bears-Packers matchup is just your expectations for the Bears running backs. Good luck with that, right?
Yeah, again, I'd feel better about Khalil Herbert if Deontay Foreman is out, for this game. But look, over the last 2 weeks while Foreman's out, Khalil Herbert averaging 20 fantasy points per game. He's had 20 touches, 120 total yards and a touchdown in both games, playing against Green Bay. Let's be clear, the Packers are a bottom 10 run defense over the last month. And so I do think Herbert is kind of he'll get, even if Foreman's active, he'll still get some work. I'm at running back 22. I think he's a high upside flex.
Only for Roschon Johnson to come
he'd be the only
steal something.
And he'd be right, of course, but he'd be the only Bear running back that I would start as Herbert.
Yep.
Okay. I'm still mind blown by Jordan Love, and
that's a crazy stat.
20 plus fantasy points in half his games this year.
Yeah,
that's the kind of guys you want, guys that can win you weeks, man.
That's Penn State Blake putting that together. Look at Penn State Blake.
One of those was against the Chiefs when he took them down.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all ready to take our last round of shots?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Make them count
on camera. Our last round of shots on camera.
Right. Who we fooling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, sir, start us off.
All right. He's officially active. It's a legacy game. I think Baker Mayfield against a tough defense. I think he balls out. 300 yards, multiple touchdown passes against the Panthers. He's had 2 or more touchdown passes in 3 straight, 4 of the past 5. He's had at least 19 fantasy points in 3 of the past 4. I believe in Baker, the Baker to Evans connection. Let's go, Baker Mayfield.
Okay. I'm going to stay in that game. I'm going to stay with that connection. Mike Evans balls out today. DraftKings have a market where you can bet on the play to get the most receiving yards on the day. across all games. Taking Mike Evans at plus 2,800. He went for 150 plus last time he played Carolina. Carolina have a lot, as good a defense as they are, they do have a lot of coverage breakdown, so I think Evans takes advantage.
All right. This on me?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to go to Baker's old team, and the guy starting for the Browns today at quarterback, Jeff Driscoll. Yeah.
Let's go. I love it.
I'm going to say he have at least 44 rushing yards against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have allowed the 8th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. He has a career high of 63 in a game. He's going to have to use his legs. He just got to the team like 2 hours ago, so he can run the ball. So I'm banking on him getting 44 rushing yards.
You talking about me? Lawrence be way off the radar.
Oh, yeah.
Lawrence goes deep.
At least 44.
All right. What you got?
Well, we just talked about him a little bit, but Zamir White. Zamir White averages 95 rushing yards a game in his 3 starts this season. So I say 100 yards and a touchdown for Zamir White. He finishes as a playoff hero. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's my running back 11 since week 15. He's been the 11th best running back in fantasy. Denver's played better run defense, but Zamir White, in terms of pure volume, playing for Antonio Pierce, playing for his job, I think the Raiders come out. I think they compete well with the Broncos. Zamir White, 100 yards and a tutty today.
Okay.
Yeah.
On you, Jay.
Go to New England. Patriots, they cover -1.5. It may be Bill Belichick's final game ever in New England. Trevor Siemian can't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. And the Patriots' defense is balling out at the moment, so the Pats cover.
There's one game Bill Belichick would love to go out winning. It's against the Jets. Outfitting his ass.
I'm going to go to some more known quarterbacks now. We just spoke about our love for Jordan Love. So Jordan Love and Justin Fields will both account for 3 touchdowns today. Fields has accounted for at least 2 in 2 straight games. Jordan Love has done that in 3 straight games, and this over-under went from 45 to 46. So I expect both quarterbacks to put on the show 3 touchdowns each.
I like it.
All right, my last one. Sneaky start. You need somebody? How about Wan'Dale Robinson? Very quietly since week 14, he's averaging over 22% target share. He's averaging 12.1 fantasy points per game. Tyrod looks for him. Plays the slot often, which is an area where Philadelphia really struggles. Of course, we know the Eagles are a really bad defense as well. Wan'Dale Robinson, 15 fantasy points. Sneaky start today for Wan'Dale.
Okay. We're going with James Cook to have 50-plus receiving yards on Sunday Night Football. Dolphins have struggled in coverage against running backs. Justice Hill, through the air, destroyed them last week. I think James Cook, he gets open for a deep one, maybe like that one he dropped against Philadelphia not too long ago. So James Cook, 50-plus receiving yards.
All right, my last one, I'm going to go the running back on the other side, Devon Achane. At least 116 yards from scrimmage, especially with Raheem Mostert expected not to play. So I expect him to do his thing. He was RB8 last week against the Ravens, who allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to running back. Now he goes up against the Bills, who are middle of the pack in terms of run defense and allowing points to running back. So Devon Achane, let's go.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Wonderful job calling these shots this season. All right, if you want a little more insight betting into the NFL, join Drew Dinsick and Jay Croucher every weekday at 6 a.m.
Why is your name not first, Jay? Why is it Drew
Why you
Dinsick
starting
and Jay
stuff?
Croucher?
Because it's left to right. Why are you starting stuff?
just
Lennon and
asking.
McCartney. Yeah,
Nobody
John
reads
Lennon, Paul
right to
McCartney.
left.
Just
Why are you
saying.
starting? Why you
I'm
crazy
just curious. I'm just curious why they don't think Jay's a bigger star.
That's right.
Why should we bet the
Why are
edge of
you
Jay Croucher?
sowing discontent?
I'm just asking.
Chaos merchant.
I'm trying to
Golly.
carp for my guy.
Anyway,
I like Drew, but
Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick.
There you go.
Okay, 6 a.m. Eastern on Bet the Edge. Whether you're targeting spreads and totals, looking for value in futures markets, or circling player props, Drew and Jay have you covered with that and much more. Or Jay and Drew, if you prefer.
Jay and Drew.
Shout out to Matthew Slater. Could be the last game of his career. Patriots repping with Captain 18 hoodies. Future Hall of Famer,
Right,
Matthew Slater.
as a special teamer. Like,
Yes.
he's been unbelievable.
Yes.
Matthew Slater.
Incredible career. He'll be somebody's coach. He'll be the next John Harbaugh.
Yep.
Yeah. From special teams background, head coach.
I love it.
Great guy. All right. As you more than likely are aware by now, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Zay Jones, Elijah Moore, and Juwan Johnson. Great call last week. I didn't talk to you since
Thank you
last
very
week, by the
much.
way. All right, belated congratulations on your championship.
I appreciate that.
Who
dat? Who dat?
That's no good.
You sound like a little child learning to say it for the first time.
It's like if Bobby Boucher said it.
Yeah.
Those guys are all active.
I'll tell you who that is. That Juwan Johnson.
That boy
That
Juwan Johnson.
who
You're getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
Will
there you
Levis,
go.
Alvin Kamara, Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, and T. Higgins, of course, all out.
So Kamara being out is really interesting because Kendre Miller is active. We'll
Yes,
see
yes,
the rookie.
yes.
Like we like Kendre Miller. It could be some Jamal Williams as well, but
Okay.
he's got to be dirt cheap and.
So you've already shouted out
DFS.
Zamir White and Khalil Herbert. Obviously, there's Tajay Spears, but with no Christian McCaffrey, what about Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously against the Rams, like the Niners are still going to run their offense. Those guys are still very good, as well. I will say that I'm guessing more Mitchell than Mason if I had to pick one. You see it there. Obviously, I have Mitchell at 26, Mason at 30. I think both guys are viable today. It's still a very good offense that will put up points.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to some wide receiver targets. You mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson as a deep play, but I see we have available in over 40% of leagues, I should say, Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson in what we think could be a shootout against the Seahawks.
The human Dortch, no Marquise Brown as well. Very quietly, Greg Dortch, when he's seen at least 5 targets this season, he's averaging 13.5 fantasy points per game. He was a member of Live at Noon on the Cock. I started him that last week.
Did you?
I started him last week against Stupid Dev. Yeah, exactly, because
Is he still stupid, Dev?
he's second place
regular
Dev.
Dev, yeah.
Yeah, he's
second
second place
place.
Dev.
Ooh, that's good.
First loser Dev.
Ooh.
Either or.
Ooh. Whatever works.
Whatever he
he
wants.
prefers.
Whatever. By the way, if all of a sudden we don't see any more graphics the rest of the show, it's because Dev says,
Right.
Devis
I got
basically
you,
said,
stupid Dev.
let's see how stupid you think I am now.
Give you some messed up.
Right,
But anyway,
exactly.
but
I'm Ron
Greg
Burgundy.
Dortch seemingly has a connection with Kyler Murray, and with Marquise Brown out, I kind of think he's kind of interesting as well. We talked about Wan'Dale and Darius Slayton against Philadelphia. That secondary is so bad, and Tyrod will chuck it.
Yep. Darius Slayton as well went 3 for 90 and a touchdown when he played the Eagles just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there's Tyrod Taylor. Nick Mullins, of course, getting a start against the Lions. You got Juwan Johnson and Gerald Everett just outside the top 10 at tight end.
Yeah, look, Gerald Everett, the stick man seems to like him, and I just again.
I don't even think you want to talk about Gerald Everett. You just want to say stick man.
Yeah, I did. Well, we already talked about it. Look, we talked about Tyrod Taylor earlier. We talked about Tyrod Taylor earlier in the show. Eagles allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Nick Mullins at Detroit. He had over 400 passing yards the first matchup with Detroit. Now, 2 of the Vikings starting offensive linemen are out, which is not great. But when you think about how you attack Detroit, it's hard to run on them, and now you're missing 2 offensive linemen. So I think Mullins will have to throw in this one as well. By the way, Falcons bottom 6 in catches and yards allowed to tight end. So Juwan Johnson, who dat, could have another good game.
Why did we wait till week 18 to introduce this?
Yeah, and then the stick man does seem to like Gerald Everett, and they're down, they don't have any other pass catchers.
No,
Keenan Allen's not going to play. Palmer's banged up. Anyway, it's a disaster there.
Okay, so speaking of disasters, proper shots, you guys are pretty good, but this part of proper shot, not so much. It's the last one.
I think we all gonna make it today.
Okay, let's go.
No pressure.
We going 4 for 4.
You want
The
to go
audience
first?
can
You
have
wanna go first?
I'll start off. I'll start off.
Set the tone.
There we
Let's
go.
go.
Let's go, baby. Let's go, team.
You go next, Mike.
No, I'm not following that. That was really close.
All right.
I always have to stand for mine.
Freaking Lawrence, man, just showing us all up. Hey!
That was it.
That was
That
it.
counts.
That 50%.
That counts.
Well done, well done.
That's counts.
Lawrence is like, we all gonna make it.
I feel good. I'm feeling good, man.
Well,
Straight off vibes.
In fairness, both Lawrence and I played college ball.
Yeah.
The
Actually,
two of us.
Matthew was my college quarterback.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
At Ohio State.
Yeah, he was
We're talking about the quad. We're talking about intramurals.
Yeah, hacky sack.
I was
FBS.
great at intramurals.
He was the reason I got second in the Heisman voting. Yes.
It's true. It's true.
right.
I had a Joe Flacco vibe in
Yes.
the locker room.
Yes.
So,
He had extra years of eligibility.
they kept calling me the professor.
Oh my God. All right, let's drop knowledge on some of these props, all right? You ready?
Yeah.
Jay, CeeDee Lamb's receptions, over under 7.5.
I'm going to go under. It's not a reflection on CD. I just think after he gets 7 for 150, he's not going to need to get the 8th one because the game will be over.
Lawrence, Jordan Love passing yards, over under 250.5.
I think we get the vibe on this show today about Love. I'm going over. I'm going over. Chicago's allowed this number 2 of their last 3 games. The time that they didn't was the Falcons. So, yeah, over.
Matthew, Travis Etienne's yards from scrimmage, over under 77.5.
I'm taking the under. He's been over this number only once in the last 4 games. First time he played Tennessee, week 11, just 59 total yards on 17 touches. I know Lawrence is active, which helps. But I'm taking the under on this. I think the Titans play tough for Vrabel. They always do. They're a pain in the ass.
Hey, Jay, Saquon's rushing yards, over under 61.5.
Going to go over. Might be Saquon's last game as a New York Giant. Who knows? He went 23 for 80 when he played the Eagles a couple of weeks ago. I think the Giants will keep this close enough to have the game script to run.
Lawrence, Bijan's yards from scrimmage, over under 83.5.
I went over on him last week. I'm going to do it again this week. He's hit this in 2 straight games. Knowingly, though, he had 18 touches in those 2 games, too. Furthermore, he had 19 touches for 123 yards versus the Saints in week 12, so I'm going to hit the over this week.
Hey, Matthew, Jordan Addison's receiving yards, over under 47.5.
I'm taking the under. We haven't seen a big Justin Jefferson game yet. I think this happens today. He's been under 48 receiving yards 5 of the past 6, single-digit fantasy points in 5 straight games. Give me the under on 47.5 for Jordan Addison today.
Hey, Jay, Baker Mayfield's passing yards, over under 224.5.
This is way too low for me. In a game where there's no weather against a secondary that, yes, is good, but also does have a number of busts, I think that this is personal for Baker. I think he wants this win. I think he'll ball out, and he goes over here.
Lawrence, Derrick Henry rushing yards, over under 50.5.
This one tough for me because I still think he could get this on one play. And Jacksonville has allowed this twice in their last 4 games, but one of those was 51 against Jerome Ford and 58, and it took 16 carries for Gus Edwards to do that. I think Henry scores, but I'm going to go under on the yards.
Matthew, Kyler Murray's passing and rushing yards, over under 261.5.
I'm going over here. He's had at least 255 passing and rushing yards in every game he's since returning except for 1. We talked about this earlier, but Seattle allows the 2nd most rushing yards to quarterbacks in the NFL. Again, given how bad the Arizona defense is, we think this is a shootout, so Kyler should be busy. Give me the over on a combined 261 passing and rushing yards for Mr. Murray.
Jay, Josh Allen's rushing yards, over under 35.5.
Going to go over here. He went 11 for 44 last week. I think a reason why Josh Allen doesn't run more is for self-preservation. No self-preservation tonight. This is the season on the line. I think he will run tonight.
Lawrence, Chris Olave's receptions, over under 5.5.
This seems like it would be easy, but he's been under this number 3 of his last 4 games. Atlanta has only allowed 1 receiver in their last 5 games to go over this number, and that was DJ Moore last week, so I'm going to go under.
And lastly, Matthew, Stephon Diggs receiving yards, over under 61.5 on Sunday night.
I'm going to go under. Now, I know you're like, wait, you have him as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. How are you going under 60? I think he scores tonight. I think he's got a shot at 2. But I don't think he gets the receiving yards there. He's been over this number only once in the last 7 games. 3 straight games with under 30 routes run. Again, I think he gets into the end zone tonight. I think he maybe gets some cheap receptions, which helps out in PPR. But I'm going under 61.5 receiving yards.
All right, don't forget on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app, use the promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
I missed it again.
All of Steelers Nation today.
Oh,
there you
Rolling
go.
with the Titans and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph's Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Looking to get into the playoffs with a little bit of help.
I like that he doesn't have any
Adorable
cushions.
young
Why they couldn't get that kid the cushion to sit on? Why all the cushions up?
All right.
Look at this.
I don't think better than winning the championship is who finishes last and what they have to do for punishment.
These are some really good
So
ones.
this changes every year, but his favorite was the loser had to compete in an amateur bodybuilding competition.
Come on now.
Fan favorite.
That's a pretty good one.
That's actually not punishment. Like you win, you
I was about to
lose
say
what you
these
win.
dudes, they look like they enjoying this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, this is great motivation.
He's just laughing.
All right, here's another one. Loser of the Dad League, all dads from kids' classes. That's a great league.
Yeah.
Has to be the Easter Bunny at the school Easter celebration. 12-team league. Again,
That's a great
that's
one.
not
That's
a loser.
good.
You
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
That's
No,
awesome.
that's
awesome.
a great one.
That's very creative. I love the dads
Yeah.
from the kids' classes. Last place has to do a beer mile. Whew. But instead of running, he has to do the gritty the whole time. Damn.
Come on.
That'll weigh you out right
If
there.
you're doing it like how Mike Gesicki doing it right there, that's gonna be tough.
But that's
Man.
tough. By the way, especially by the way, if you're because a beer
gonna be
mile means you
sore.
need to drink. So
Right.
you're doing the gritty with your arms down low, and then you got to drink the beer. Like
You
I
gotta have
think
some Megan Thee Stallion
Right,
knees,
just
man,
like-
to do that.
yeah.
That's hard right
Damn.
there. This is creative. Whew. Loser has to wear this jacket when he's in public with at least one league member, no exceptions. Fantasy football last place jacket. That's sweet.
Let's
I'm telling
go.
you, man, y'all are winning with these loser punishments. Like
great.
this is great stuff.
That's amazing.
This is well done.
And it just it means that like you probably call that guy every single day.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing
What
today?
you doing?
What are you,
hang
let's
out.
go. Let's go
This
grab
is
a
great-
beer.
This is great league culture.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of leagues with some
This is
really
the
good
best.
culture here.
We should have a last place punishment in our league.
Was I last? I wasn't
No.
last.
I'm glad it's not this year.
Lawrence.
I think I was second to last.
No.
I lost track. All right, top 10 QB rankings pictured. Dak coming in at number 1. We talked a lot about Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. But let's focus in on all three of those guys, starting with Dak Prescott, Matthew.
He's my number 1 quarterback this week. Again, I think Josh Allen, I have it 2, has more upside as we talked about, for
Okay.
the guy that was down below. But like in terms of just, look, Washington has allowed 35 passing touchdowns this year. Josh Dobbs, Mac Jones, Trevor Siemian, Desmond Ridder. They're the only quarterbacks to not score at least 17 points against my bad Commanders.
Who'd you say?
Desmond Ridder,
all right.
Trevor Siemian, Mac Jones, Josh Dobbs.
So one
when he was with
inactive,
Arizona in week 2.
another inactive. One's getting forced to play today, and one's okay. So all right, there you go.
Those are the only guys that did not score at least 17 fantasy points against my Commanders as well. Week 12, Dak had 331 and 4 touchdowns on my Commanders again, and they're missing guys in their secondary. Like their secondary has been bad, and then the starters are out. Like
That's
again,
worse.
like right, no, Kendall Fuller's not going to play, Cam Curl's not going to play. Like, and those are like 2 of their better guys, and like.
Who y'all taking number 2?
But it's not a done. I need the Patriots to win. If the Patriots win and the Commanders lose, then we're locked into the 2.
Yeah.
But if the Patriots and Commanders both lose, then it depends on sort of seeding. Because right now we just have a very right.
Now, obviously, the Bears have a lot to say about who's
Yeah.
available at number 2.
I don't care.
But who you want? Who do you want? Perfect world. Who you want?
That's a great question. I think I want Caleb Williams.
You want to bring him
I
home?
think I want Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I think. Listen, but I think honestly, like, I'd be thrilled with. I'd be thrilled with Drake May. I'd be thrilled with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
I'd be thrilled with Jaden Daniels.
For talent.
Right? Like, and like,
Yeah.
like, I think Penix is going to be a really good pro too.
Yeah.
Like, so, I just want a guy like. I think Sam Howell is a good quarterback, and I think he's fine.
Okay.
I do. I think he is an NFL starting quarterback, but I think he's an NFL starting quarterback in the way that
65 other guys were
I
this year?
see it
Kinda
like a Ryan Fitzpatrick type guy. Like some days he's your starter, maybe
like
some.
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill, Geno Smith. Like,
that's not bad. Maybe
that's
he just
not
needs
bad.
time.
You can win
Maybe
with
he can
those
get there.
guys.
Tannehill was a 1 seed 2 years ago.
Right,
get
you
there,
can
yeah.
win with those guys, but I think maybe Kirk Cousins. I think Howell's ceiling is Kirk Cousins, and that's not bad.
Really? Okay. So you and I were both early on the Howell train.
Yeah.
I've seen some things from him that I don't think it's all the circumstances. I think he may have some inherent flaws that might prevent
Doesn't
him
feel
from ever
pressure.
reaching.
He doesn't feel
He
pressure.
doesn't feel pressure.
Yeah.
I think he can get there. My point is, but I think Williams and Drake May, from everything I've seen, and people that are much smarter than me that talk to me, those guys are like franchise quarterbacks.
Yep.
Those guys are like Joe Burrow, like build your team around.
I'm looking forward to hearing your answer to who you're looking forward to drafting in fantasy next year, because hometown Caleb Williams ends up on the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean,
you ought to turn that down. Jay, Jalen Hurts, what you got?
Yeah, well,
with
firstly-
no Devontae Smith and no
DeAndre Swift looks like he is expected to miss, and we'll get into that. First, I just want to congratulate anyone who took the alt line on Cam Curl over 1.5 references on the show, because I actually just cashed at 200 to 1.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, that's such a strange season. It was only a month ago or so that he was the MVP favorite. Now, just the Eagles season has spiraled into being really disappointing, but he's still the number 2 quarterback in fantasy. I would be a little bit concerned today, though, that Nick Sirianni talked about resting guys, and I wonder if the Cowboys are up 3 touchdowns on the Commanders in the third quarter. Is Jalen Hurts going to be playing the fourth quarter? So I'd just be a little bit worried about the usage of the Eagles today.
All right. And Lawrence, you got more on Josh Allen?
Yes, my quarterback 2 this week. He's thrown a lot of interceptions this year, right? But when it comes to him playing the Dolphins, he does really, really good against them, win or loss. I actually do think the Dolphins will win the game. However, Josh Allen, 4 out of his last 5 games, including the playoffs against Miami, at least 300 yards and at least 2 touchdown passes in those games. So now I'm not even talking about the rushing yet. Hasn't thrown an interception to Miami in his last 4 regular season games against them. 12 touchdown passes, though. A rushing touchdown in 5 straight games. In 3 of those games, he has 2. They get to the goal line, he's scoring. Speaking of Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, because of that tush push, like these should easily be the top 2 fantasy quarterbacks in fantasy next year. In 16 games this season, he's only not scored a rushing touchdown in 4 games. So he's getting in there. Like, he plays well against the Dolphins. So there you go.
All right. Going a little bit deeper at quarterback, Matthew, Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, we've talked about him a few times on the show, not as much as Cam Curl. But by the way, Commanders have elevated a couple guys from their practice squad in the secondary this weekend, just to show you, like, it's going to be like, woo, doggy. Anyway, Tyrod Taylor is
Who dat?
Who dat? Who doggy?
Who that? Wait a minute. Who that too? Who all those people? Who are these guys?
That guy trying to guard CeeDee Lamb. Who that guy?
Not Cam Curl.
Right, yeah. Anyway, he's had 4 starts this year, Tyrod Taylor has. He's had at least 20 rushing yards in all of them. No team in the NFL gives up more fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks than the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do think Tyrod is a viable QB1 this week. He comes in at QB12 for me.
Hey, Lawrence, I was thinking about talking about this guy later on, but you take him for now, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, so now especially we know that he's active. I think we all expect that he would be. Probably still banged up. Remember in the beginning of the season, we was waiting for him to have a 20-point fantasy game. He started having a string of those. Then he got hurt with the ankle, then the shoulder. So he hasn't had a 20-point fantasy game since week 14. Tennessee allows the 13th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. So Tennessee's allowed an average of 227 pass yards per game in their last 4 games. That's not a lot. And in those 4 games, they've only allowed 3 total touchdown passes. So I'd be a little weary with the injury and with this Tennessee Titans team. One of you guys mentioned it earlier, who's going to play for Mike Vrabel today.
Yep. Just on Trevor Lawrence, it's interesting that with the betting market this morning, yesterday the line was Jags minus 4.5. As it came out that Lawrence is trending towards playing, now he's active. Line's trending towards Jags minus 3. Market's going against, and I think that speaks to the concern that Lawrence is going to be pretty limited today.
Yeah. All right.
And by the way, Titans always play tough, and I think it's unlikely. I personally think it is unlikely that Mike Vrabel leaves the Titans without at least some compensation coming to Tennessee. No. But there are rumors out there, real or not, that this might be Vrabel's last game with the Titans, and this game is in Tennessee. They always play tough for him as well. So I don't think it's a done deal. I think the Jags probably win, but I don't think it's a done deal. I think this is going to be close. I think this is going to come down to it, and I would not be shocked if the Houston Texans are your AFC South champions.
Remember last year it came down to the Titans and the Jags. Josh Dobbs was on the Titans, and they got the victory.
Yep. I will say as well, no one talks about Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill's been an amazing servant for that franchise. He led them to a 1 seed. This is going to be his last game as a Tennessee Titan, almost certainly. Could be Derrick Henry's last game as a Titan.
DeAndre Hopkins has some incentives that he needs to hit as
I think
well.
they're going to play well today.
I definitely think they're playing well.
Yeah. Bravo. An amazing servant.
He was. He did everything else for the Titans.
That's really good. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay.
Jake, good man.
Jake's my boy. Jake Browning. Jake Browning, Jay, what do you got about him?
I think he's going to play well today. And we think about teams that have nothing to play for. Yes, the Bengals have been eliminated from the playoffs. They're 8-8. They want to finish with a winning record. They want to end with a win. And guys like Jake Browning, like he's playing for his future earnings today. Teams going to be watching this. He can lock himself in, I think, as at worst, the clear backup to Joe Burrow again next year.
Maybe somebody's
and
bridge.
Maybe someone, or he goes to another team and he's, the Jets backup to Aaron Rodgers or something. So
I will say this: the backup market this year is going to be like. Backups are going to get paid this year just because, again, like 66 different quarterbacks started this year as well. So, who day?
Well, Christopher's picking between two backups, Browning or Mullins, also Olave, Devontae Smith, or Tank Dell. This must be a keeper. Is that a keeper?
Yeah, because I would not start Tank Dell.
Yes.
Why would he be keeping Browning or Mullins?
Yeah, that's
maybe it's a combination of my starting and my keeping one of these.
Why does everyone go to Olave and Devontae Smith on the same team?
Yeah.
So
Olave or some type of Devontae.
Let's start with this. I have Mullins one spot higher than Jake Browning. So I mean, I think it's kind of a coin flip here, but I would by my rankings I would start Mullins over Browning again. I think that game against Detroit could be a little bit of a shootout. The secondary is so bad against Detroit, so I do think Mullins. Give me the guy that's got Justin Jefferson to throw to.
So this is definitely keeper. Olave, Devontae, or Tank Dell. That's definitely keeper. Well, two of those dudes aren't playing. So
yeah, I mean, well, Devontae's not playing.
He's not playing,
right?
And Tank Dell's obviously done.
Done, and they played yesterday, and he's been out for the year. Yeah. So guess start Olave today, but
who that?
Who that?
Yeah, I'm probably keeping. I'm still probably keeping Olave over Devontae Smith, but that one's a close one. It's a really close one.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Christopher.
And I love Tank Dell, as you guys know, but he's not in the same class as those guys. Not yet.
Okay. Moving on to running backs. And Matthew, you talked about this earlier. You look at not only a shootout, but two of your top 4 running backs come from the Cardinals-Seahawks matchup. Let's hone in on Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, look, running backs that have seen at least 15 touches against Arizona are averaging over 22 fantasy points per game. It's just such a great matchup. Kenneth Walker clearly took control of that backfield last week. They're just using Charbonnet as kind of a third down back, kind of a change of pace guy, but it's all Ken Walker. No team has allowed more rushing yards, and they've allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs, the Arizona Cardinals. So Ken Walker, in a game the Seahawks need to keep their playoff hopes alive, should be used early and often. Again, you saw it there, my running back 4.
Jay, you talk about a running back that took the opportunity and ran with it and caught it, as the case was. Rachaad White.
Yep, RB6 on the season, Rachaad White. He had a really disappointing week last week where he had 4 fantasy points. He only broke 1 run and he fumbled at the end of that run. But I think he bounces back in a big way today. The Panthers have the least efficient rushing defense in the NFL. Rachaad White, his rushing prop is set at 70.5. I think that he'll have a great game today.
Lawrence, Breece Hall, beasting.
He's definitely helped us out in the fantasy playoffs. Now going against New England, we all know about their tough top 3 run defense. They also allowed the 12 fewest fantasy points to running backs per game. They have not allowed a running back to run for more than 50 yards in a game since week 10. That one man was Jonathan Taylor, and it took him 23 carries to get 69 yards. With that being said, Breece Hall has 21 catches on 25 targets for 138 yards and a touchdown his past 2 games. Jay, you mentioned it earlier, Trevor Siemian is not pushing the ball downfield, but he will push it to Breece Hall, and I got him finishing as the top running back in fantasy this week because of that.
I love that. Jim, full PPR championship week 2 with Kamara out. Do the Dayton Dogs start Jamal Williams over Travis Etienne? Other running backs are Pollard and Zamir White.
No, because the truth of the matter is we just don't know what's going to happen there. First off, Jamal Williams could be great against the Falcons, but he could also do nothing. Like Kendre Miller, their rookie who they like a lot, it could be a committee. There's too much uncertainty with what's going to go on with New Orleans when you have a viable running back in Travis Etienne. I get that it's a tough matchup here, but we know Etienne's going to get all the work. So I think that's getting too cute for me.
Agreed. Etienne for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of Zamir White, he checks in, Matthew, as your running back 11.
Yeah, we've talked about him a few times today as well. 3 games that Jacobs has missed. Every game he's had at least 20 touches. He's averaging almost 16 points a game. Back-to-back games with over 100 total yards. Broncos, No team in the NFL gives up more yards per carry to running backs than the Denver Broncos. They allow 5.3 yards per carry. In a game in which the Raiders want to win, the players want Antonio Pierce to be the guy. The players are rallying around him, and so I think the Raiders will come out here and play well. And
what does Antonio Pierce want to do? Run the ball.
Run the ball, 100%. Run the ball, play good defense. It's going to be Jarrett Stidham again for the Broncos. They've phoned it in for this year. They're, I'm not saying they won't try to win.
Revenge game for Stidham, though.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hey, I don't know.
Yeah, it's real Uma Thurman, Kill Bill spot.
How
for
dare y'all
Jarrett
let
Stidham.
go of me after I played that game versus the 49ers like
How
that?
dare you let me go sign a $10 million contract? Like, Stidham got a ridiculous contract.
How dare y'all do to Derek Carr using me last year what the Broncos did to Russell Wilson using me this year? Full circle.
Full circle.
All right. Lawrence, DeAndre Swift, let's talk about him, both in terms of him potentially being inactive, reportedly dealing with an illness and unexpected to play, and also what that means for the Eagles' backfield.
Yeah, and you know what? If he doesn't play this week, I would like, Matthew, you have him ranked at 17. I'd like Kenneth Gainwell right in that spot to slide in for him. Swift, just a few weeks ago, week 16, Swift 20 carries, 92 yards, and actually got in the end zone instead of just, falling right before the goal line there. Interesting thing, too, if DeAndre Swift does miss this game in week 17, Kenneth Gainwell out-snapped DeAndre Swift 26-23, so it was fairly even, but we've not seen that type of snap share with these two in a while. And remember, to begin the season, Kenneth Gainwell was the Eagles' top running back, and we was wondering, well, why did they trade DeAndre Swift? So if Kenneth Gainwell does get that opportunity, then I expect them to have a decent game against the Giants.
And the last time they played, the Giants shut down Boston Scott. Like,
that's the hardest thing to do, shut down Boston Scott versus the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm saying when we see that another streak begin for Boston Scott against the Giants. And Jay, lastly, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I think with Bijan, we all view his season as kind of a colossal disappointment relative to expectations. But he's still RB14 on the season. It's not like he hasn't done anything. It's not like it's a Tony Pollard situation where he's outside the top 20 running back. So I think he is trending in the right direction. I think back to what he did against the Colts a few weeks ago, where he looked like Bijan Robinson, the guy that we all expected. And against the Saints team that was excellent against the Bucs, in run defense last week, has been struggling a little bit. I think Bijan will remind people why he was drafted so high.
Hey, Dominic, congratulations on the championship this year.
Go.
Keeper question gets to keep
Yes,
two
sir.
players, Etienne, Bijan, Jaden Reed, Sun God, Tank Dell. First of all, nice job. Yeah. That's some great choices there.
I think he's got some of the. I think he's got Tank Dell and Jaden Reed because of the show, and certainly my ride or die. I think we helped. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, that's a tough one, man. I think it's
Bijan and Sun.
Bijan
I
and
would go
Amon-Ra.
Bijan and Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I think that Etienne's the only other guy that's sort of in there because I figure like they'll get their offensive line figured out. The Jaguars, they'll be better, but I think it's between those three. I think it's Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and then I think it's between Bijan Robinson and Etienne. If the Jags improve their offensive line and Arthur Smith is still the coach of the Falcons, you still going Bijan over Etienne?
Still going Bijan. Still think year two with the talent. I also think that even if Arthur Smith comes back, it's not going to be the same thing. Like they can't
Because they're going to be like, you better give him the damn ball next year. Because it's going to be with some type of stipulation or something.
Yeah, I think Bijan.
Yeah.
I think you're probably going Bijan, but I think that's what we're all in agreement. You're keeping the Sun God, and then it's probably keeping Bijan. But I'd want to see sort of how that plays out before fully committing on Etienne over Bijan. But right now, I lean Bijan.
You were saying earlier that you like Khalil Herbert today against the Packers, especially if Deontay Foreman doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Herbert will get a good amount of touches at Green Bay, regardless of Foreman's status or not. He's had 120 total yards, a touchdown, and 20 touches each of the last 2 weeks. Over the past month, Packers are a bottom 10 run defense on the road at Green Bay. You'd expect they're going to want to run the ball as well. So, yeah, Khalil Herbert comes in at running back 22. I think he's a high-end flex.
Emotional, sentimental game for servants of the Titans franchise. None more so than Derrick Henry.
Yes, legend of the franchise. Suspect he'll probably be on a different team next year, but I'll get to Derrick Henry in greater detail in our next segment. But just wanted to point out attention, Derrick Henry's rushing probs had 49.5 rushing yards. It's just kind of depressing to see that in the DraftKings app. But I think he'll have a good game today, and I'll get more into it in pickup lines.
I like that tease. Lawrence, Elijah Mitchell.
First, let me say this about Elijah Mitchell. He's good enough to be the 49ers starting running back. Like, if he still was, they wouldn't be as good, obviously, with CMC, but they'd still be pretty good. Remember, this is a guy who ran for 960 yards in 11 games as a rookie. Last week, stepped in for CMC, 17 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Second leading rusher on the team, but besides CMC, averaged over 6 yards per carry last year. So I think it's an opportunity for him to show that he still got some skill. He had a hell of a rookie year, but when you got the opportunity to get a player like CMC, that's a no-brainer. And Mitchell's dealt with the injuries too, but that's a nice little DFS play for you right there.
Showcase opportunity there. All right, let's look at the wide receiver position.
For sure.
And Mike Evans, as he continues year after year to solidify his Hall of Fame resume. Matthew.
Yeah, no, and you heard Jay talk earlier about the bet that he likes of Mike Evans at plus 2,800 to lead all receivers in scoring. Look, he's had multiple end zone targets in 2 of the past 3 games. Sorry, Jay's bet is to lead all receivers in receiving yards. Fantasy-wise, as you see it on your screen, he's my wide receiver 7 because, again, he's getting all these end zone targets. When he played the Panthers in Week 13, he went 7 for 162 and a touchdown. Dating back to 2021, the last 4 games against Carolina, Mike Evans is averaging over 30 fantasy points per game. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's good.
That's not bad, right?
Good number.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Good number.
Lawrence, DJ Moore.
First off, DJ Moore, congrats on a career year here. Now you got some quarterback stability, put up the Pro Bowl numbers. And again, without Justin Fields in week 6 through 10, he was only wide receiver 37. Kind of went to sleep there in the fantasy playoffs, but got back on track as wide receiver 3 last week against Atlanta. Now going up against Green Bay, who's allowed 2 receiving touchdowns to wideouts in the past 2 weeks. So I expect that Justin Fields connection to DJ Moore to keep rolling. Hell, he loved Justin Fields, so hopefully he get his wish, get him back, but should be a nice game for him as well.
Tyreek Hill, Jay, the records, it's a long shot, but it's not completely out of reach.
No, he needs 250 yards or so to get there, and you wouldn't put it past Tyreek. But I think that is a long shot. But we talk about Sunday Night Football tonight as a legacy game for Josh Allen. This is a Tyreek Hill legacy game as well to cap what has been the best season of his career. If he goes for 150 and a touchdown in a win and knocks the Bills potentially out of the playoffs or at least clinches the division, I think he could potentially steal Offensive Player of the Year from Christian McCaffrey, who's the favorite at the moment. Because I think this is the type of game where Tyreek is going to have a Tyreek game for them to win, I think.
Yeah, and I would agree with it, by the way. Again, like all these awards that are voting awards, like humans are like, there's so McCaffrey won't play this week, right?
Yep.
And primetime game. Everyone's going to be watching tonight. And if he just
AFC
has,
East title, they haven't,
if he just has a monster game at home, he has a Tyreek Hill type game.
There were a lot of people, I'm sure, going into last night with saying, voters, I'm going to vote Puka Nacua Offensive Rookie of the Year because he's going to break the record, and Stroud hasn't really done much in 5 weeks. And I think a lot of those people flipped to CJ Stroud after they saw what he did last night.
Yeah, 1,000%. Same thing with Coach of the Year.
Yep.
People were like, it's got to be Stefanski, and then
D'Amico Ryans is right there now. Yep.
Right there, they're like, D'Amico Ryans didn't put in Tyson Goodwin with a game on the line.
Which real quick, stop calling that a drop. That was an awful pass.
It was a bad pass.
Stop calling that the Goodson drop.
definitely-
That was a terrible pass. Dude, that didn't do a
hang on,
360 to try to catch it.
It was a bad pass.
Gardner
it was not a
Minshew.
rhythm.
He shouldn't have been in the game.
But it's a catchable pass.
Oh, wait, which guy?
Which guy shouldn't have been in the game? Goodson.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Jonathan
insane.
Taylor should have been in the game.
Exactly. I mean, it's a catchable pass. Is it a bad
Was
pass?
it catchable?
Sure.
Yeah.
It hit his hands.
It wasn't good. It was a bad
It hit
throw.
his hands
It
as
could have
he's
been
doing
good.
this. Sure.
Listen,
Gardner Minshew. that
Our
was his
days
fault.
at Ohio State, you would have expected me to catch that. So,
Also,
you know what I'm saying?
If it hits your hands, you're supposed to come down with it.
Yeah.
Can we stop giving Shane Steichen criticism for the play call? The play call worked. It was a perfect
it
play
was
call.
wide
They
open.
loaded up against the run, and he had a wide open pass to Gardner Minshew, just has to make a regulation throw, and they probably win the game.
That's true.
It's not Steichen's
But
fault.
Jonathan Taylor did have 188 yards.
It's
Let him
weird.
get 189.
It is weird that the only thing I can think of as to why Taylor wasn't in the game, and I haven't seen any of the post game.
hurt.
Was that what it was?
He was hurt. He was banged up, and all of his runs on that last drive was runs up the middle. I'm not sure he could have run out to the left. Is the one.
That's
thing,
fair.
so.
That's fair.
All right. Fair enough.
That is fair. In the non,
I was rooting for the Texans though, so
Yes,
you know.
I loved it. I loved it too.
Yeah.
It was glorious.
Yeah, you want to see him in the playoffs.
I just think it's a fun story.
Great
you know,
story.
my
Great
parents root for the Texans. My parents, live in Texas.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Texans are their team, so they're
No.
excited.
They won
you know.
11 games in 3 years coming into this season.
Yeah.
That's They had the longest Super Bowl odds of any
Yeah,
team.
good for them.
Now they got 10.
sound like you're making a case for DeMeco Ryans. There you go.
Yeah, and you know what? The Colts, and God bless them, but the Colts had Peyton Manning for so long.
Yeah.
Then they get Andrew Luck, and then now they've got Anthony Richardson. Like
They'll be around.
Some of us, like Commanders fans, I've been in the quarterback desert for 25 years.
Yeah.
Like they've enjoyed nothing but great quarterback play for much of the last 3 decades, and
Yeah.
so
I'm with you.
We're talking about awards in the non-DeMar Hamlin voting block. Coming into the season, we thought Calvin Ridley could be comeback player of the year. Hasn't been consistently great, but what do you think about him this week?
I'm at wide receiver 14. No Christian Kirk in this game. Trevor Lawrence, even a less than 100% Trevor Lawrence playing, is ultimately a good thing, I think, for Calvin Ridley. When these two teams played in Week 11, Ridley had 31.1 fantasy points against the Titans. He went 7 for 103 and 2 touchdowns as well. Tennessee allows the third most receptions to opposing wide receivers this year, so I do think Ridley is a viable play today. He's my wide receiver 14.
Jay, what do you think about Jamar Chase? No T. Higgins today, catching passes from, of course, Jake Browning.
Yep, no Higgins and also no Myles Garrett on the other side. This Cleveland defense, they're resting a lot of guys. Cleveland have nothing to play for. Chase has been talking a lot the past couple of weeks on that Chiefs game. I think he'll want to end the season on a high, and he should get as many targets as he wants.
Nice year for rookie receivers. Obviously, Puka Nacua is the gold standard, Lawrence, but Jaden Reed, man, he's been really good this year.
Yeah, 27 points and a half last week against the Vikings. 3 straight games of at least 6 receptions and 8 targets. Just watch out to see if Christian Watson becomes active again. Reed only averages 2.4 fantasy points when Christian Watt plays. But, I think at this point you
The
rearrange
expectations
it.
are that he's not going to play.
Okay, so but even still, if he did, it's like you've seen what Jaden Reed has done as the guy, and he a baller. It's that simple.
That's who Jordan Love should be trusting anyway. Brandon Cooks against your Commanders, Matthew.
You had me at Commanders. There's only one team in the NFL that's allowed more touchdowns to opposing wide receivers than my Washington Commanders. Cooks, who scored in 4 of the past 6. He's had 7 end zone targets in his past 5 games. I love Dak in this one. I love my guy 8. I think everyone on the Cowboys is just a smash play against Washington. Look, the Cowboys are favored by 13. They're favored by almost 2 touchdowns. Cowboys minus 13. I think that's too low. I put a decent amount of money on the Cowboys minus 13. So I think this is just a statement game for the Cowboys, who they need to win this game. They should win the game, but if they win this game, they are the 2nd seed. They're the NFC East champions. They play home until the NFC Championship, where they would have to go to San Francisco if the Niners are there. The Cowboys are so good at home this year. This is a very important game for Mike McCarthy, for the Cowboys franchise. I also think there's a lot of chip on the shoulder for those guys. So I think, in terms of Dak Prescott, who's been under a lot of criticism, Pollard, Lamb's obviously had a great year, but, I think he'll spread it around. Yeah, give me Brandon Cooks as wide receiver 23.
Yep.
Start your Cowboys today.
Lawrence, Cortland.
Who
Sutton.
dat? Oh, sorry. How
believe
about them Cowboys?
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton has had a good season from a touchdown standpoint, but I don't know if you want to start a receiver in this offense in a game that has an over-under of 37. You talked about these Raiders players wanting to play for Antonio Pierce. They've allowed 1 receiver to gain over 60 yards their last 4 games. That one guy was Josh Palmer on that 79-yard touchdown when they was down by 50 points. So unless Cortland Sutton gets that touchdown, which he's known to do, I wouldn't love that as much.
All right, and Jay, you want to talk Jordan Addison?
Yeah, it's been a disappointing second half of the season for Jordan Addison overall, I think. But
No fault of his own, though, right?
No fault of his own. He's still been a
play.
fine season, and he's really showed flashes. Think back particularly to that Niners game in Primetime, where he was the guy in that game. And so with Justin Jefferson back, his usage has dried up a little bit, but it's a really favorable matchup against the Detroit pass D that cannot stop anyone and a run D that can stop everyone. TJ Hawkinson obviously out for the season, so I think Addison will be viable. In a game that, by the way, Vikings haven't been eliminated from the playoffs yet.
Yep.
It's 20-1 that they'll make it, but that's still a chance.
That's
so they'll
funny.
play all out.
We're watching Jordan Addison very closely. He's open a lot.
Yes.
Like Nick Mullins, just lead him a little bit farther, bro. Please.
I think if I'm a Vikings fan, I agree with your assessment for today, but I think if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm excited about Jordan Addison. I think that's a hit as a draft pick. Like he'll develop more. They'll have Cousins or somebody back next year that's a real quarterback. Like Jordan Addison, I think they found their Adam Thielen replacement. I.e.,
for sure.
Which obviously very different player, but just a compliment to Jefferson.
Yep.
That's a very viable wide receiver.
Trey McBride, very viable tight end. And again, this matchup has got a lot of fantasy goodness, right?
He's my number 2 tight end, as you see it right there. Seattle's allowed the 8th most yards to tight ends. McBride has, since he's took over the starter, a 27% target share, 5 straight games with at least 6 receptions. There's a real connection between him and Kyler Murray. Boy, it's hard to keep McBride when you think about your tight ends for next year. It's going to be hard to keep McBride outside of the top 5. Even with you've got Kelsey and Andrews and Hawkinson and Laporta and all these guys, but I think and Kittle, but McBride's right there.
Yeah.
He's just been nothing short of phenomenal this year.
Hey, Jay, Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Juwan Johnson.
Who dat?
Bit delayed.
Who dat? Who dat you talking about? Sorry.
No.
You talking about Juwan Johnson?
I'm talking about Juwan Johnson.
Why did I
Dat,
change it?
who you talking about?
What the hell was
Why did
that?
I
Dat.
Juwan Johnson, who, I don't know what happened to him in Tampa Bay last week. He looked like 2009 Antonio Gates. Looked like an absolute
He got
monster.
put on Live at Noon of the Cock.
I know.
And there you
Getting
go.
lifted, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
For better report, Dev. I think that he has a skill set where I don't understand why he doesn't do that more often.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is Alvin Kamara being out, and he's more of just the kind of middle of the field type of guy. So I think Juwan Johnson can replicate that today to some extent with Kamara out again.
And Lawrence, Matthews tight end 1, Evan Ingram.
Yeah, and they're going against the Titans who allow the fewest points to tight ends, but I don't care. You ever heard that song? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care because Evan Ingram's having a career year, tight end 4 this season, and he's been a tight end 2 over the last 4 weeks. So, yes, we feel great about that.
I'm going to tell you about a dynasty trade I made involving Evan Ingram during the break. But meanwhile,
Okay.
bragging rights in the AFC East and playoff position. And you thought I was going to tell it to you now? No.
I thought so.
I'm not going to subject you to that right
Fair.
now,
Okay.
or the audience.
Just during the commercial break.
Just during the
Good.
commercial break, exactly, yeah. Because the audience doesn't care.
Yeah.
They want to know about this AFC East showdown. We talked about the Bills
snap.
could be the 2 seed or out of the playoffs. It's
a
all
great
on the
game.
line when Josh Allen and the Bills travel to South Beach for a battle with Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. Winner claiming home field advantage next weekend. Of course, it comes with the division crown. Coverage of the Week 18 matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Last place gets a dozen eggs thrown at her.
Oh.
Now that is a loser's penalty.
Right, that's a
there.
It should be
punishment
more than a
there.
dozen.
That's a
Because, like, look
punishment.
at this guy in the red. I don't know what his throwing motion is. This is brutal.
He would not be on proper shot with us.
No, he would not.
Really? I thought he was gonna punch
that
him
guy's
right
cheating.
there.
No.
But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah,
Call him the egg man.
all right.
Congrats. You motorboated his way into a second fantasy championship. There
there
you
you
go.
go.
Motorboating son of a.
Let's
Love
Now
it.
you
There
know,
you go.
Mike.
you motorboat, you win
There you
championships.
go. That's a great. Is that a trophy or a kink? Whatever that is, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Last place has to go up on a billboard. See,
That's pretty good.
See,
But again, that's not a loss. Like you get to be on a billboard for crying out loud, wherever you are.
That's pretty funny.
yeah.
as
Yeah.
long
A
as I ain't
billboard,
paying.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty
good.
amazing.
That's good stuff.
Oh,
Oh no.
Tattoo of a toilet saying the John with the year.
See,
I'm not. So
This was
that's too
mine.
much.
This is Kenny Bravo at K Dog Hayes. He says this is mine from a couple years ago. The John 2021.
That's
Oh,
off
nah.
limits.
See,
I'm a
oof.
hardcore fantasy
That's
guy. You are not
hard-
about to
no.
tattoo my body.
yeah, right.
But-
Nah. But man, I mean,
That's bad.
respect for taking it that serious.
Yeah,
Damn.
right. Must run a lemonade stand in public in costume for 2 hours, or until you raise $200 for charity, whichever comes first. That's very creative.
Look at them shorts.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Boys.
Damn.
Damn, that's a lot of.
So the
small
loser
font.
has to wear this
Extra small,
pink
bedazzled
bedazzled.
Tony Romo jersey in public at next
Hey,
year's
that thing
draft party.
blinged out though.
You can see evidence here that the jewels were popping off last year. I definitely had to give it some TLC for this season's party. P.S. All the guys in the league are not an extra small. Thank you, Laura.
I don't know why it's
Yeah.
thank you, Lifestyle Laura. I don't know why it's a Romo jersey though. It's
Maybe they Cowboys fans or something.
it's something maybe,
That's good.
or maybe they're not. But that's pretty good.
That's good content.
That's yes, that is very strong.
Time for some beers or some theoretical beers. How many beers would you need to drink
Yes,
to
sir.
start the following players, starting with what you got?
Well, I was just going to explain the segment in case anyone
Sure.
didn't know.
That
You
we-
know,
yeah,
just,
absolutely.
Because you know,
in
like
case
you're
you're
at a bar.
first time watching
Show mercy,
this,
America.
What is
No,
week
no,
18?
no, whatever. I need one. Calvin Ridley's the first one up. I'm just
Yeah.
joking. Calvin Ridley. You asked me who dat? I'll tell you who dat. Calvin Ridley. He's on the Jaguars, and Jacksonville is sort of near New Orleans. It's on the same.
regionally, I
Regionally,
guess. Yeah,
yeah.
southeast, sure, yeah.
Anyway, listen. One beer for Calvin Ridley. He's my wide receiver 14. Again, no Christian Kirk in this game as well. He absolutely crushed them the last time he played them as well. You know, he had that 7 for 103, 2-touchdown game in Week 11. Tennessee, as I've mentioned, allows the third most receptions to opposing wide receivers. Calvin Ridley, my wide receiver 14. Just one beer. I'm fine. I'm nursing it. Starting Calvin Ridley, no problem.
Social drinker.
Easy. Just
Oh, don't do that again.
I'm about to say, of all the shit you've done,
What is that?
bruh.
it's me sipping a beer.
That's a beer?
Nursing a beer.
I believe that's
No,
chamomile tea
Hey,
and
Nobody
terrifying.
sips a beer like that. Nobody makes that.
Now he just got to follow it up with a who that?
How you make it?
I'm trying different intonations.
yes.
Eventually I'll nail one.
You are leaving it all on the field in week 18,
I'm
baby.
just,
Like
I'm
this-
saying, right? That's right.
Oh, it's out here sipping and slurping. Oh my God, Jay, rescue us with some Diop knowledge.
Yeah, 0 beers for DeAndre Hopkins. So
Thank you.
I don't need
You don't need to
I
slurp.
don't need to slurp anything. And I probably wouldn't anyway. But DeAndre Hopkins, 0 beers. Jags defense, let's go. DeAndre Hopkins also has a lot of contract incentives to play well today, so I
bet.
think he will.
Derrick Henry, Lawrence.
3 beers, so like in the middle. What people don't know is that it's only 9 running backs who score more fantasy points than Derrick Henry this season, despite how it may looking from a pure rushing standpoint. He's been better. If you take out the receiving, he's been better than Travis Etienne, so I'll show some respect. I think he have a decent little game here.
All right, moving on to Bucks, Panthers. Chuba Hubbard, Matthew, how many beer are you nursing or sipping?
Just one beer. Just you know, just yeah.
That he didn't even slurp that one. Like,
Yeah.
with the
mainlining.
underbite. is
that
really
one
what
was
we're
dry
doing.
right there.
A lot of listen. When you drink or eat with me, just there's a lot of noises that come out of me. It is what it is. Just you understand. Like, just be grateful that you never have to do it. You never have to, be grateful you never have to do it. But one beer, Michael. To answer your question, one beer, my friend. Look, he's had at least 11 fantasy points now in 6 straight games. You think about his matchup against Tampa Bay in Week 13. 104 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, had a great game against them. And in 3 of the past 4 games, the Buccaneers have allowed at least 5 receptions to opposing running backs. So Hubbard, who they have committed to, once Frank Reich and Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, left the team, they've committed back to Hubbard as sort of their guy. Bryce Young has played better. He's not scared to dump it off. So, yeah, I have Hubbard as a top 20 play this week. He's 1 beer.
I just want to thank Adam Thielen for his contribution, because somebody out there made the playoffs and maybe won a championship thanks to Adam Thielen, what he did early in the season especially.
Yeah, we interviewed Adam Thielen on our show earlier last year, one of the nicest guys.
He was great.
really glad for Adam Thielen that he had this season.
Adam Thielen will make a great broadcaster if he wants to do that. He's done.
2 beers for Adam Thielen today. I understand he hasn't closed the season as strong, but really favorable matchup against the Tampa Bay pass day.
Yep, and Chris Godwin, Lawrence.
I would say 2 Carolina top 5 against receivers in fantasy, but Chris Godwin done got back on track. He's been wide receiver 7 through the fantasy playoffs, double-digit targets in 2 of his last 3 games, so just 2 beers for Godwin.
Alrighty, Saints.
You want to ask me about Kyle Pitts?
No, I was looking for
who dat?
Yep, Saints, Falcons, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. I think the Saints players will be saying, who dat, to Kyle Pitts because they won't see him on the field doing anything. I want 3 beers. I want to be pretty loaded if I'm starting Kyle Pitts. He's had 3 or fewer receptions in 4 straight games, single-digit fantasy points in every single game that he's faced the Saints. That's why they say who dat. They're like, because they literally don't know who is that.
I wonder what other intonations you've got before the show. Who is that man?
Right.
Who dat?
Who art thou?
Under 5 fantasy points in his last 3 games against New Orleans as well. Desmond Ritter's going to start, which I think is a downgrade for Pitts as well. He's been more successful with Heineke this year. So he's my tight end 14 in a week in which, so many players are out, and we've already had 4 tight ends play.
He's
and
still tight end 14.
Still tight end 14. No,
Jay, what about
you.
Drake
3
London?
beers.
Same boat. 3 beers for Drake London. I think it's a downgrade going to Desmond Ridder. Downgrade for Pitts, downgrade for London, downgrade for America. Desmond Ridder hasn't worked out great this season.
Rashid Shaheed, Lawrence.
I would need 4 beers because the snap share just fluctuates. 55%, 66%, 75%. So you don't know what you're going to get. You're just hoping for the deep ball touchdown. I need 4 beers right there.
Matthew, you shouted out Wan'Dale Robinson as a sneaky play earlier.
Yeah.
How many beers you need to feel good about that?
Just 2. I'm at wide receiver 29. 7 targets or more in 3 of the past 4 games. There's a connection between him and Tyrod Taylor. No team allows more fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me Wan'Dale Robinson. Just 2 beers.
Jay, Darius Slayton.
4 beers for Darius Slayton. I think what you're counting on here is what he did last time against the Eagles, which is a 69-yarder. Bite your tongue, Matthew. I don't think you're going to get that today.
Fair enough.
Tyrod Taylor, Lawrence.
Just 2 beers. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles defense be getting worked. Tyrod Taylor was QB 11 in Week 17. That's against the Rams, so faces a much weaker defense this week against the Eagles. So just 2 beers for Tyrod Taylor.
All right, you guys are feeling pretty good. I'll take y'all keys.
Yeah.
11 beers for Lawrence, 9
pickup
for
lines.
Jay, and 7 for Matthew. So Matthew's still kind of, got his bearings. You guys are feeling pretty loose right here. So time for some pickup lines.
Who's that?
Yeah. Lawrence, you're up first.
That be Lawrence Jackson today with this right here. I'm gonna do a fun one for our last one here.
What do you got?
The race to 20 rushing yards for James Conner at plus 130. First off, the most important stat in the world, he's coming off a game where he was the first to 20 rushing yards, right? If you don't like that, he's averaging 91 rushing yards in his last 4 games, and his main competition is Kenneth Walker, who's been averaging 55 rushing yards over the last 4 games. So basically, it's who's going to get the ball first. That's what it is, because Arizona's run defense ain't good. Seattle's run defense ain't good. But I'm going to go with James Conner today. He's been more consistent.
All right. Jay.
All right, Matthew.
All right.
Gonna end with a real moonshot.
Okay.
I talked about Derrick Henry earlier. Derrick Henry, 100-plus rushing yards at plus 800. Can you imagine that going into the season, that Derrick Henry would ever be plus 800 to get 100 rushing yards? This guy used to get 100 rushing yards for fun. He's done it 3 times this season. 2 weeks ago, he went 19 for 88. We think of the Jags as a good run defense, not in the second half of the season. They're down to 21st in run defense efficiency. I think the Titans go all out to win this game for Henry, for Tannehill, Vrabel. We talked about the uncertainty with him. And I think this game is going to be close enough that they're not going to get out of a run script. So plus 800, Derrick Henry 100+. That's just way too big for me.
I like both these bets. I mean, basically, in essence, instance, with the James Conner one, it's a coin flip, right? Whether who gets sort of the ball first,
Maybe,
Conner
maybe
versus
not,
Walker. You go some Murray. Could Murray scramble for that, as well? But you're getting basically a 50-50 bet at plus money. So I like that. But plus 800, I'm with you. This is likely Derrick Henry's last game. It's at home. Vrabel's a player's coach. I think they feed the big dog.
Yeah.
Plus 800 is hard to top. So
I'm putting it in.
I literally am. I have my app
and I
open.
just took his
Literally have my
under on
DraftKings
50 and a
open.
half, but 800.
Yeah, so I'm going home with Jay. But again, as always, Lawrence, keep your phone open. I'll be like, who dat?
Who that?
Who this? Not who this. Who that?
I'll be like,
Yeah.
you said it with Jay. That's who you said it
What a
was.
terrifying
That
message
open-
to receive that would be.
We are
Yeah, roll
recapping
3 a.m.
the
Roll through.
2023 regular season
roll through.
when we come back.
I'm done with Jay. Come roll through.
Damn, dog. Kind of.
Are you more excited? You good? Oh, there we go. As our resident
He ready to go. He ready to go.
As our resident Swiftie.
I'm taking the under here for Travis Kelce on the receptions again.
he built us up.
Why do you hate freedom?
Sutler Evans. Hey, that's hard. Hey, we appreciate that's dedication right there. There's a great cameo from Damien right there. Great way to photobomb right there, buddy.
My storyline is about a guy that's not going to play today. Keaton Mitchell. You tried to hold that in as long as you could. Is that not the most Michael thing?
First
All right,
off,
go ahead.
explain to everyone who Keaton Mitchell is.
No, he's not a politician.
Right,
He
no,
plays
no,
football.
exactly.
Others sniped other people in the show league when I was trying to pick up Keaton Mitchell, and Lawrence picked him up before I could get him, and waiting on people like that. Come on, guys. Like, where's Lawrence?
We on week 5 already, man.
You're not an outdoor person, Lawrence? Is that what it is?
We'll see.
Somebody divorced his wife to be here. It's amazing.
That's a ride or die right
That
there.
is a
Some
ride.
literal
That is
ride
a
or
ride or
dies.
die. Joe came dressed as me. I don't like. You can't even like. Can you see Joe?
He's a better looking version of you. It's an upgraded version of you.
It's not hard to be a better looking version of me. I'm talking to a man on an Eagles head. What was your reaction when he showed up with his head?
I encouraged him.
There you go. 2 peas in the pod.
Was not.
You guys are the perfect couple. You might be the best wife of all time.
With no Dollaritas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm angry. Where's my Dollaritas? Like,
You drank them all. There's none left.
Do you think that, like, Fred Warner is in the locker room going, we got cooked by Kirk Cousins. Look yourself in the mirror. We got cooked by Kirk Cousins. I've played in fantasy leagues with Michael 15 years maybe, you and I
Something like
have been,
that.
like something like that.
Yeah.
Trading with Michael is exhausting. Exhausting.
He
about
gonna
to
break it down.
He
I'm
down.
not a
breaks it-
pushover.
I can
I'm not a
see-
pushover. That's
Look, hey, seniority
Yeah.
He's always on the show with you.
That's
But
right.
remember in Vegas,
You were my guy in Vegas.
we was ready
Yeah, I
to.
need more like who. I mean, we have one night in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Y'all night in Buffalo, definitely different.
Yeah.
Lawrence is his favorite. There you
There
go.
we go. Appreciate you, dog. I don't need nobody here. I need you, Kelly.
All right, Lawrence, we'll answer his question.
this
T.
is a-
Higgins
this
or
is
Rasheed Rice?
This is a pity tweet. I can make anything about the Commanders. This is my.
So
this
when
is
it
my
comes to
magic.
teams, I think you got
No.
it tight.
No.
He seems to, right?
You notice that.
You just like pain.
Like
man.
dysfunction.
He's an
I mean,
Angels
you-
fan as well.
You understand?
Goes under the radar.
It's very simple. I will never ever draft a player that is coached by Arthur Smith. Never. I don't care if Arthur Smith becomes an offensive coordinator for the Ottawa Senators. I will never play. I will not
They don't have
draft.
them in hockey.
I will not draft a defenseman from that team or a forward, whatever it is they do in hockey. So yes, I will never ever draft a player that has Arthur Smith as his coach. That's my New Year's resolution for this year and every year I'm alive on this earth.
I take the Pepsi challenge with this show as real against anybody. Like, good luck picking out
We had
our best
fun.
moments.
Yeah, I don't know how
This
they
is
were
what the
able to
cutting
piece that
room floor
together.
looked
Yeah,
like, right?
exactly.
You know?
Honestly, I mean, they could have just showed the entire Philadelphia show.
Straight up,
Big
straight
time,
up,
big
for real,
time,
for
big
real.
time. Like,
Drunk on
so
Dollaritas.
many jokes flying out. I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's been a great year. It's been an absolutely great year.
It has been a great year. A lot of laughs. Also, a lot of lessons. So we're gonna recap the season with a couple of burning questions, shall we?
Okay.
Jay, let's start with you, buddy. Your biggest surprise, your biggest fantasy surprise for 2023.
Yeah, so I think as we go through the season, we kind of forget what our expectations were at the start of the year. My biggest surprise is CJ Stroud. No one thought CJ Stroud was going to be this guy. No one knew he was going to be better than Bryce Young. Everyone thought the Texans would win 5 or 6 games, had the longest Super Bowl odds of any team. And CJ Stroud comes in and he does what rookies aren't allowed to do. He was a legit MVP candidate. So CJ Stroud's my biggest surprise.
All right, good one, Lawrence.
Yeah, for me, it's Baker Mayfield, just to come back from what he did. Somebody said it earlier, the 4 teams in 12 months. He's been to the playoffs before with the Browns, but, they had a nice defense. You was handing off to Nick Chubb, but now Tampa Bay doesn't have one of the best defenses. You didn't have one of the elite running backs, but, you made do with Mike Evans, and he had his best year of his career. And if he could cap it off with the playoffs, then you definitely would say it was him for me.
All right, Matthew, your biggest fantasy surprise.
I think Puka Nacua. Like, we liked him. We talked about him in the preseason. We're like, hey, I know they like him a lot there and, kind of an interesting sleeper. But the idea that he would go out and set the rookie receiving record opposite a mostly healthy Cooper Kupp, as a 5th-round rookie for Sean McVay, like, Puka to me was the biggest surprise.
Hard not to go Joe Flacco here, literally coming off the couch and winning people fantasy games or championships down the stretch. I got to go with Brock Purdy because it's easy to forget coming into the season, during draft season, there was still some question as to whether or not he was the long-term guy.
Yeah.
Is it going to be Trey Lance? He was coming off an elbow reconstruction surgery, and all he did was not only pick up where he left off, but take it to another level and be a viable MVP candidate for most of the regular season. So for me, it's Brock Purdy as the biggest surprise. Knew he was good, didn't know he was this good this quickly. Conversely, Jay, your biggest disappointment this season?
It's Tony Pollard. Guy expected. I thought he'd have a real chance to be the number 1 player in fantasy. He finishes outside the top 20 for running backs.
Yeah. Lawrence?
Yeah, for me, it's not even a player. It's Arthur Smith. Just how he
As a man?
because I can't use all the Falcons players, so you just say Arthur Smith. Again, he's done some good things. They'll be in the quarterback market like they should have been coming into the year. So you give them a little leeway with that. But just in different spots, man, you would expect guys like Bijan and Pitts and Drake London to take over more. So I would just say him.
Matthew?
My biggest disappointment, I agree with Jay, it's Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Again, somebody that he's been fully healthy. He was a top 15 overall pick.
Yeah.
And
so good last year.
So good last year. We've he got him, he had over 40 red zone touches this year and converted very few of them. So to me, it's Tony Pollard. He is to be the biggest fantasy bust of people that stayed healthy all year.
Yeah. And I know this guy was a little banged up at times. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence. My number 7 overall startup draft dynasty pick was supposed to be in the MVP conversation. It added Calvin Ridley. Looked like all the pieces were in place, especially how he finished last year. That streak where he had like 20-point games was really like fluky rushing touchdowns. It wasn't anything to do with the passing game. So Trevor Lawrence for me. The biggest lesson you learned this season, Jay?
Yep, it's the same one as every season, really. In early rounds, if you can, prioritize wide receivers over running backs. Just more predictable, less attrition at the position.
Okay. Lawrence?
Yeah, I think this one more in general. You just don't always follow the money or follow a contract that a player signed. Prime example, Dalvin Cook, $7 million to essentially get no touches. So, now he's cut. He's on the Ravens now. So don't always follow the money. Follow the skill, the situation, and things of that nature.
Matthew?
Never assume rational coaching. I mean, Arthur Smith is the poster boy for this, but I don't understand why it took Tank Dell as long as it did to get on the field, right? Yep. I mean, and we like to be correct.
For that matter, why he was on the field the way he was when he got hurt, for that matter.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. So just never assume and skill over draft capital. Again, Puka Nacua, you think about, something like that, Devon Achane, who went in the 3rd round, just in terms of not necessarily where they were drafted is not necessarily, there have been some first-round picks that just haven't really. Quentin Johnston, right? I mean, he's been much worse a rookie wide receiver than Rashee Rice or, Tank Dell, Puka Nacua, et cetera, et cetera.
I beg your pardon for this because, this is mainly your job. Ignore off-season hype. In particular, ignore everything you see in the preseason. Because another biggest disappointment, Kenny Pickett. Dude had a perfect preseason rating in the preseason. And everybody loved him
I
this
wouldn't know
offseason.
that. I wouldn't know that. I don't know
you
about
wouldn't know that?
everybody
All right,
else.
a lot of people were.
I like Kenny Pickett.
Yeah,
I like Kenny Pickett.
Preseason, man. Once upon a time, Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football. Player you are most excited to draft next year?
For me, it's Tank Dell. I mean, again, I think we've just scratched the surface of what that kid can do. We saw it. I think that offense is going to take another step forward as well. Stroud's the real deal. Tank Dell.
Lawrence?
Anthony Richardson, man, started off great this year. I think because of the injury, you'll be able to get him probably at quarterback 8, quarterback 7, that range. But we see what he could do. Definitely can't wait to draft him next year.
Yep. For me, it's Jonathan Taylor, who it's going to get lost because they lost the game, but he was a god last night. He was magnificent. He was 2021 JT. I think he has a case to be the second running back in fantasy next year.
Those two going to go hand in hand.
Yep. For me, it's CJ Stroud. I'm starting up a 16-team dynasty league. I really want CJ Stroud to build my franchise around. Franchise player Matthew Berry. We can't leave without congratulating you on A, the Show League championship.
Thank you.
And
Thank
B,
you.
The Bar Trivia Championship. You ran away with it at 113, 71, and 5.
I really did.
Look at this.
It's
I
rigged.
really did.
It's rigged.
How is it rigged?
Because the show's called With Matthew Berry at the end.
Well, there's a reason why.
And they know I don't be checking.
There's a
So they
reason for
just
that.
just make Lawrence go 1-10 when he's on his heels.
This is the time where I would talk about how great I am for beating you guys in the Show League and Bar Trivia, but I actually want to do something different. I want to take this time here to actually thank all of you. It has been an unbelievable, magical year. Thank you, audience, for tuning in every single week as well.
Yeah.
Lawrence, Jay, Michael, you guys make it a pleasure to come to the show every single week. Shout out to George for filling in a couple of weeks when you were on the road as well. Shout out to producer Steven, who does a great job. Steven D'Agostino, David Dabrowski, Adam Wise, who does such a great job. Penn State, Blake Friedman, our researcher, of course, as well. Dev Stafford, he's not stupid. He's our Dev Stafford does a great job with all of our graphics. James, I promise I script your last name, but Castielluccio, Chris Dupree, Dan Carcamo, Jason Gold, Kevin Brady, Kelsey Bartles, Jenna Murillo, Joe Cook, and of course Alexa, Matt Casey, Danielle for oversight. Everyone, Fantasy Football Pregame Happy Hour. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We love you. Thank you. We'll see you next year. Peace out.